Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Municipal Land Use Board meeting, 7 o'clock tonight on February 7th, 2018. We'll have the flag salute. Mayor, would you please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Borough Hall, by email to Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same, as provided by the law scheduling, including the date and time of this meeting. I would like to remind all members of the public that we have 3 fire exits, one behind me, one on this side, and of course where you walked in. In addition, we are being recorded by both audio and video for purposes of creating a public record of the meeting. If any member wishes to speak, they only need to come up, identify themselves, and it'll be recorded by the camera over there and the microphone in front. Roll call, please.
Councilman Equifeta is absent. Mr. Arakelian?
Here.
Ms. Boland? Here. Dr. Gurwitz is absent. Mr. Merman?
Here.
Mr. Grasso?
Here.
Mr. Caslin?
Here.
Mayor Mignon?
Here.
Mr. Craig?
Here. We have a quorum. First order of business is the approval of the minutes. This is for my contacts are a little blurry here.
January 3rd.
Yep, January 3rd. Everybody should have gotten a copy in their email or up.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a couple of corrections.
Okay.
On the cover page, you're listed as secretary, I'm assuming, and chair.
I can be multifaceted, but yeah, we'll cross out secretary.
And as you move down, you also presence. It wasn't Mr. Burgess, it was Tom Burns. And likewise, I don't think Brian was here that meeting, was he?
I do not believe so.
I don't think he was, and we have him listed as being in attendance. And those are the only, let me just make sure the changes I had. I will note, I have a comment on the meeting minutes, it's the housekeeping one, housekeeping comment. We did ask the planner to submit an annual report for 2017. Seeing that he sent another representative tells me that he didn't do it. Okay.
He did have a copy.
No, I'm only.
You want to plan I will speak to Tom on that.
Well, it was a summary of all the applications from last year. So let's just make sure we mention it in our minutes tonight so we can carry that forward. Other than that, I'll make a motion. If nobody else has anything to approve the minutes.
I do have one point of clarification. It says on page numbers, but on the second page, for the summary of block 1404, lot 104, 3.01, my refusal was not due to the fact that I worked for the applicant, but my law firm is represented. Just like
okay. Make a note of that.
The housekeeping pages should be numbered.
This was a fill-in person. They're still looking for a minutes person. So at this point, I consider it fortunate to have something.
But they're not doing it for free. They're getting paid. So.
We have a motion by Mr. Merman. Do I have a second?
Second by Mr. Craig?
All in favor? We don't need a roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained?
Abstain.
Ms.
Was it
Boland
here?
and Mayor Mignon
Yep.
abstained?
I was not here.
Okay. First order of business is the memorialization for the estate of Tamborelli. Should all have gotten a copy the other day in your email. Over my email is going berserk. On my borough email, somebody hacked it.
No, they didn't. We changed the servers.
It's going berserk.
Oh.
Okay. Are there any comments on the memorialization for Tamborelli? Everybody satisfied? We'll take a motion to approve.
So made.
Mr. Merman? Have a second? Anybody that wishes to? Mr. Craig? Yep. Roll call, please.
Mr. Killian?
Yes.
Ms. Boland? Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Falcon recused himself on that one. Mayor Mignon?
Abstain?
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Good.
Good.
Okay. First order of business, excuse me, for completeness review is Michael and Jennifer Toda, 143 Valley Road, Block 1101, Lot 25. Good evening, folks.
You talking about the notice?
Everything is good?
Notice
I'm
of the
sorry.
order.
Couldn't hear.
All right, Dick, we're not going to hear you yet. This is just for completeness. Anybody have any comments on the completeness? I believe the notices are correct. Everything is in good shape. We do have drawings. I have a motion to approve completeness on this application.
So move.
Mayor?
Second.
Second, Mr. Merriman. Roll call, please.
Mr. Killian?
Yes.
Ms. Boland? Yes. Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mayor Mignon?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
And Mr. Craig?
Yes. We're going to see you in a few minutes, okay, folks? Thank you. Okay. Next up for completeness, John Minaccio. Did I say that right? Okay. 824 Summit Avenue, Block 206, Lot 15. And again, I believe that we've gone over that application.
Mr. Killian? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We did have an opportunity to review the notice. We find that it meets the minimum requirements of the miscellaneous law. This board has jurisdiction over the application.
And we do have drawings. Anybody have any questions, comments? Yep.
I have to recuse myself. I'm within 200 feet.
Okay. Okay, I have to leave you that.
Okay.
I have a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Mayor, second.
Moved by Mr. Mayor Mignon, seconded by Mr. Merman.
Correct.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Killian?
Yes.
Ms. Boland recused herself. Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Mayor Mignon?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
We'll call you up in a few. All right, thank you. Okay, on to new business. Michael and Jennifer, you can come back up. Notice. Again, for the record, this is 143 Valley Road, Block 1101, Lot 25. They're looking to put an addition on their home and they need some impervious coverage relief. Good evening. Okay, so why don't you tell the board what you're looking to accomplish?
We just kind of introduce ourselves. We've been around for 14 years. In addition to teaching in town, to working, living in town, I also teach at the high school, at West Coast High School. We're committed to the town, so we're looking to stay in the town and with this addition to give us the house that we really need in order to do.
I'm sorry, just formality.
Before we begin, each of you need to be sworn. Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yep.
Please state your names for the record.
Michael Toy?
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So that's who we are, and like you said, I'm very committed. I've been the head wrestling coach at the high school for 18 years. We volunteer around town all the time. We coach 10 seasons of junior baseball. Football coach for junior football, volunteer coach for 5 years, 3 years head coach. I've been involved in junior wrestling for 18 years. And we love the town, we love our neighbors, we love our block. So we're looking to put what we think is a modest addition onto the house. We want to update and modernize, expand the kitchen. We want to expand the foyer and provide adequate roof coverage at the front door, expand the porch, and provide additional dimensions, visual interest, and balanced front elevation that maintains the scale of the home and keeps with the overall neighborhood.
Very good. Please, our planner. our zoning officer, Mr. Skirvitz.
Yes, 3 variances, front yard setback, 28.5, the 30 required. Lot coverage, which is 2 structures, they're asking for 25.9%, or 25 is the maximum. And the impervious coverage total, they're asking for 41.2, where they have an existing 39%, and 35 is the maximum. So all 3 requests are within the
Very good.
Is there a variance on the square footage of the porch?
No, it would be for the setback.
It's less than 35 square feet.
The porch is greater than 35, so it becomes part of the house. So my interpretation would be that the variance would be for the front yard setback and not for the size of the porch.
As long as
I
it's clear on the
clarified
record.
that before I came to this meeting. There's no need to write, that's the...
I just want to make it, so it's on the record, so it's clear.
Correct.
Mr. Marvin?
Yes, I have a couple quick questions.
I knew you did.
You've answered one of them, that you've been in town for 18 years, plus or minus.
We've been living in town for 14. I've been coaching and working in town for 18
Okay,
years.
so how long have you been in this house?
14 years.
14 years, okay. And, basically what you're asking to do right now, the way I read the drawings, is you've got, what looks to appear as a ranch house, and you're gonna go upwards and square off the building.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. We really just want to square off the kitchen area.
Right.
Just to open it up a little bit. We have quite a big family. All of our siblings live out of town. Unfortunately, we're sort of the senior layer on my husband's side of the family, and my dad is sick, so we actually host all of the holidays with lots of out-of-town guests, and so we just want to improve the house a little bit.
All right, your second drawing, A2, over the garage, you're proposing an office.
Yes.
Okay. Is that office for business purposes? Explain the use of that office to me.
Yeah, so I don't think I introduced myself formally. I'm Jennifer Toda. Michael and I have been in town, as we said, 14 years. My job is, I'm the director for outpatient operations at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. And some of my time is actually, work every day. My job doesn't really end when I leave work, and I need to be on call for the hospital.
Okay.
So I should need to have access to the hospital systems and a quiet place to take conference calls.
So this is going to serve as your, okay,
Yeah.
home office, we can sort of say.
Home office.
The real question is, do you normally have or anticipate any people visiting?
No,
Okay.
no.
So there's not
No.
there's no parking issue?
No,
Okay.
no, I would be doing conference calls.
Okay, all right, no. The one thing I noticed on your survey by Angelina and Fury that you submitted is your rear property line pretty much follows that little wood tie retaining wall you have back there. However, the surveyor, I guess, properly recorded your fence that goes beyond that into the borough land. That borough land is also part of a floodway back in there, so that fence would be impeding any sandy type storm, especially, or any very, very heavy storm. And it seems like that fence has been there a long time.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It also helps us with, there's wildlife back there, we have a child and a dog, that kind of helps us with that stuff as well, not people walking through.
What I'm going to recommend is that fence be relocated onto your property, all right, and out of the borough property, which is the only real comment I have. I think that from a stipulation purpose, we don't want to hold you up, but when I make a motion, it'll probably state that the certificate of occupancy, when you're done with construction, be held until that fence is either removed or relocated.
Okay.
Okay?
You okay with that? Okay.
It's not the first time it's happened.
No,
There's a lot of,
it's a common,
and the borough, once they're aware of something, we can't permit you to have an encroachment unless we enter into some kind of easement agreement. I don't know if we've done that in the past, but we could certainly bring it to the council if it's something we want to consider.
Mr. Chairman, those are my comments.
Anybody else?
I'll just ask a question of Mr. Scorbus.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Scorbus, I just want to clarify one point. I reviewed your letter of denial of October the 30th. There were 2 variances. You just mentioned 3.
Correct.
What is-
There's another letter issued December 15th, which included the front yard setback variance. And they renoticed, which they did include into that. That was our first meeting.
Very good. Thank you.
Anybody on the left side of the dais? Anybody on the right side of the dais? Have a motion to approve the application? Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. Motion to open to the public, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? Anybody in the public wish to make a comment on this application?
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? Okay, now, thank you, Mayor. Now, that's the motion to approve.
All right, I'll make a motion that the board consider approval of this project as laid forth on the drawings, and that the certificate of occupancy for this construction be withheld until the rear yard fence encroachment onto borough property is either removed or relocated off that property.
Second.
I am. Mr. Merman, I previously crafted some language respecting the encroachment. If I may read it into the record, you can tell me if it's okay with you.
What? Go ahead. Oh, okay.
No certificate of occupancy shall be issued to the applicants until the encroachment into the floodplain, as depicted in the Aslina Fury and Ramundo Engineering Group, November 8, 2016 survey, is removed to the satisfaction of the board and the board engineer. Is that satisfactory?
That's fine.
I would add, it's an encroachment onto borough property.
Okay.
Do I have a second? Mr. Caslin. Roll call, please.
Chair Killian?
Yes.
Ms. Boland, is this the one you recused yourself from?
No, it isn't.
Ms.
Yes.
Boland?
Yes.
Dr. Gerwitz is absent. Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Mayor Mignon?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Yes.
What about me?
And Mr. Murray.
Sorry, Mr. Merman.
Hey.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to
Yes.
entertain a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
So moved.
Okay.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Any opposed, any abstained? We're at 7:20 p.m. I asked the attorney to draw up a resolution for us for this application of 143 Valley Road, River Edge, block 1101, lot 25. And we're going to vote on this resolution, resolution. Everybody's had a chance to read over it during recess.
Yes.
Do I have any comments?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Is it your intent to sign this tonight?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. That's
No,
it.
because she's going to have to redo her copy.
Okay, because I was going to suggest
Mhm.
that I substitute for
Right.
the doctor and so on.
No, he'll come up,
Okay,
and
that's fine.
we'll have this signed early next week. I don't think they're going to start for a while yet anyway. Yep. Do I have a motion to accept the resolution on this application?
So made.
Second.
Second?
Seconded by Mayor Mignon.
I think Mr. Castle will be able to.
Mr. Castle?
We'll give that to him. And a roll call, please.
Mayor Mignon?
Yes.
Chair Killian?
Yeah, yes.
Ms. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Rosso?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Just for the record for the audience, I'm hard of hearing and my contact's wrapping up tonight, so I'm blind and deaf. Congratulations. He'll have your memorialization resolution sometime next week. Get published, you have a 45-day waiting period. You can act during that 45 days, you just have to be careful because if somebody comes in and gives you a hard time after that, which I doubt they will, then we'll have to deal with it, okay?
Okay.
All right?
But you can submit your building plans during that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was a pleasure meeting you both. I see all your volunteers have been working. Please get hold of our mayor, talk to him. There's always things in the barrel for volunteers to do. All right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along, our next application, John Minaccio, 824 Summit Avenue, Block 206, Lot 15. Good evening, sir.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give us is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please state your name for the record.
John Minaccio. All right, Mr. Minaccio, why don't you give us a brief description of what you're looking to accomplish tonight?
Sure. So, my wife and I have been down for approximately 10 years. We're in the midst of a renovation project. We'd like to cover our existing front stoop with a porch.
I just want to let the record show that Ms. Boland has reclused herself. She's within that 200-foot radius of the property that we're hearing. So she's in the audience with us for now.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
would that also apply to Mr. Costa?
He's not even weighing in on this
Okay,
application.
I'm
so it
just
doesn't
making
matter.
sure.
At the moment I am, and I am totally outside of the, I am within 200 feet and I'm off.
Yep.
I'm in the audience.
Okay.
I'm not, I actually might say a word, but I'm not going to say a word on behalf of
All right, so continue, I'm sorry.
That was for the record, Mr. Costa.
Thank you.
I think that was it. Is there any questions?
Mr. Skirbis.
Yes, identical variance to the previous application, front yard setback. The porch is 40 square feet, 35 is the maximum to go further into the front yard setback. This is going to be 25.8, 30 is required simply because the porch is 5 square feet larger than the maximum permitted for the enclosure.
Very good. Board members, on the right side?
No comment.
There's no impact on the side yards.
No.
Board members on the left side? Okay, at this point, I'd like an opportunity to open to the public. Have a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Anybody in the public wish to speak on this application? Mr. Casa? No, thank you.
Honestly, they do a phenomenal job in their home, and young family, been here a while, outstanding neighbors. So my opinion, if I could vote, I would vote yes.
Well, we do know about Ms. Boland being an outstanding neighbor. If there's nobody else in the audience, I'll make a motion to close the meeting to the public.
So me.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Okay. At this point, I'm willing to take a motion on the application.
So move.
Mayor?
To approve.
Michael, is that you? Yes. Mr. Craig?
Moved by Mayor Mignon, seconded by Mr. Craig.
And roll call, please.
Chair Killian?
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Mayor Mignon?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
All right, at this point, I'd like a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
So move.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? We're in 5-minute recess. In the matter of the Riverbridge Municipal Land Use Board, it is 7:30. And we're going to vote on the resolution for front yard setback for 824 Summit Avenue, Block 206, Lot 15. Any comments from the board?
None, Mr. Chairman, from me.
Motion open to the public? Second? Yeah?
No,
Public? No?
not to do.
On the resolution?
Yes.
Yes.
I will say that.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? All right, anybody from the public wish to speak on the resolution? Being nobody in the public wishes to speak, I have a motion to close to the public.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution on this application?
I would make a motion to approve the application.
Mayor Mignone,
I'll second it.
Mr. Merlin, roll call, please.
Chair Killian,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Grasso,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Mr. Craig.
Yes. Motion passes. You'll be able to pick your stuff up early next week.
Okay, thank you.
Have a nice day.
Your architect turned it north hour 90 degrees.
Okay, Mr. Skurvitz, I thank you for your service this evening.
Did we have this for-
Be careful going
Couldn't
home.
even copy it.
Mr. Costa, you're welcome to join us.
Thank you.
And just let the record show that, David, what's your last name?
Novak?
David, of Burgess Associates is subbing for Mr. Barron's this evening. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. I'm sure Tom would rather be here as well.
And I also want to welcome back Ms. Boland and Mr. Costa. Okay, next application is for ILBI LLC, 335 Johnson Avenue, Block 1405, Lot 3, for a major subdivision. Good evening, Counselor.
And it's good to be back.
Once again, we understand, so if you wish to be seated, you're welcome to.
I appreciate it. Your comment about being half deaf and half crippled. I'm not gonna give it anything to Carl, it's just a nice spot for them, at least they know what they are.
Just for the record, I said half blind, I didn't say half crippled. Okay. Share again.
May I open?
You may open. Please state your name
On
and...
behalf of the applicant, my name is Frank DeVito. I happen to represent this applicant. I've represented him throughout the years on a number of other matters. It's not often that I get to represent on an application that has no downsides, and that everybody wins. And this is one of the rare occasions where that has happened. And one of the reasons it's happened is because this town offers me the benefit of coming before some of your subcode people who participated in this, and no plan is ever perfect. And it always could see some improvement. And the suggestions that were made by your subcode were accepted almost. Well, we put up a little bit of fight, but they were accepted. What's proposed here is we're going to take down a building that has seen its time. The building's probably been there for, I've been practicing under scared for 50 years. This building has been there ever since and probably precedes before me. So the building's been there about 50 or 60 years. It's coming down. And we're going to put up a two-story, super modern, incredibly efficient structure. The building that's there is a little better than about 11,000 feet. What's going to be put up is something a little short. It's being, with parking underneath. This area, this particular site, is located in an area of buildings or other buildings that have been designated as an area needed redevelopment. This particular site is not one of them, but it is surrounded in the vicinity of contiguous. And what's interesting about it is that across the street from probably your latest iteration of trying to create another downtown is the Total Wines and More. It's sort of diagonally across the street. This proposed improvement will almost lock this area up as an area no longer up and coming, but that has arrived. This is a massive, major improvement to this particular area. This building, the design of this building is just outstanding. And it's not some mere brick and stick structure, but it is a commitment to this municipality that I've been committed to for a lot of years myself. And with that, I'd like to call my first witness, John Bailey. I knew he was here somewhere. My architect. And I ask that he be sworn.
Sarah, affirm the testimony you're about to give us the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
John Montoro,
Mr. Montoro, what is your business address?
150 West Saddle River Road in Saddle River, New Jersey, and Montoro Architectural Group.
Thank you.
Mr. Montoro, have you appeared before this board before?
Oh, yeah.
My question is, I'll go through his, to qualify him, but he's appeared before this board. Because I'm familiar with him, I'll go through his qualifications.
He has been here before, I remember him. He seemed pretty confident then.
He's gotten actually better.
Is everybody all right?
I'm fine.
Good? Okay.
We waive the
Please.
problem.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks, John, do me a favor, would you be so gracious to take us on a tour of this project, and with the board's permission, the council's permission, as he refers to an exhibit, I will mark it for today's date.
Thank you. Counsel, if you could just have him identify the date and any revision date of the plan.
Keep your voice up, John.
Yeah, this set plan here is redlined and marked up for the presentation. It's basically the set that was submitted to the board, with the exception of this first drawing, which I added just for overall identification, which is a copy of the site plan. And that drawing is PP 1.2C.
And the date of it, and I'll call this A1, today's date, 2/7/18, with my initials.
And the rest of the set, which is what you have, which is the same as what you have in colorized, is what we call that,
A2, 2/18, 18, 19. Take us on a tour of the site and what these exhibits attempt to indicate.
okay. So I'll just do that if I stand here. Okay, so this is a reproduction of the site plan package, only of the site plan, that indicates heights, and indicates the property lines, indicates the buildings, and indicates the location of retaining walls. Colorized, what you will see here is a blue line, which is the property line. What you will also see here is a green line, which is kind of hard to see in this lighting, but there's a green line here, right next to the blue line, which indicates the retaining wall, which is a railroad tie retaining wall that actually supports our property. So the adjacent property is lower than our property. The elevation of the adjacent office building, and obviously this is, all the buildings around here are basically office buildings and of the like, and that's what we're looking to create also. The adjacent property elevation is, where the parking is underneath the building is up on sill, is elevation 16.11. The reason I'm using these numbers is to give you an idea three-dimensionally of the site, because it's not flat, and the buildings have different elevations also. So it's very important to understand the topography, not just the building footprint. So from 1611 at present, it goes up about 5 feet to an existing elevation of 20.61. So their parking lot has a retaining wall that's about 5 feet high. So when you stand at the street level, what you see is the retaining wall sticking up the railroad tie retaining wall that's in this repair. And then our side starts about 5 feet up and continues up towards the north. What we're proposing to do is to take out that retaining wall, level the property adjacent to the retaining wall until we put our retaining wall in to go down lower. We're proposing to construct basically a split level building, one level down from the street and one level up from the street, a half a level down and a half a level up. When you stand on their parking lot side, what you, instead of seeing a retaining wall, what you will see is the grade goes up 7.5 feet additional from where that retaining wall is, until it then steps down to the lower parking area. Our upper level will be relatively close to the existing grade that exists now. So while we're creating a two-story, a parking lot plus two-story building, the main level will stay pretty much where the existing building and where the existing grade is. And by doing that, we get rid of this retaining wall, open up 7.5 feet of space, put planting there, and basically open up the whole site. So with that said, I want to point out where their building is, where the adjacent building is. Here's the sidewalk. This is the corner of their building. Our new proposed building, not the parking deck, which is roughly at grade, our new building is all the way back here. And the reason we pushed the building back, obviously, to the rear of the site is to allow for parking in the front. We felt that putting the parking in the back people wouldn't know where to go into the building. They would, wouldn't know whether they would drive to the back or park in the street, where they go. Here it's clearly visible that the parking is in the front and the building entrance is in the front. When I show you the elevation, I probably should show you the color light elevation now, because that is really what we're trying to promote. So during PB 1.4 is the baby drawing is 12, 12, 17.
All right, I'm going to go off, this is 8 with elevation. One gate. I can, well, it's nothing.
So what you will see here is a colorized version that kind of explains more of the finishes, but also gives you a real three-dimensional feel of what the building will look like constructed versus just the plan, which is a two-dimensional object. This is the street line. This level is what's called the main level, and this level is the lower level. So you can see that the street line bisects halfway up and halfway down in the two levels. What we tried to do is, instead of putting the building in the back where cars would park in the back and then have to figure out where to go in, do we go in the back and go in underneath, we actually clearly made an element to say entry. Okay? We pushed the building back so the parking is in the front, and also it's clearly visible whether you go up or you go down to park, and it makes people really know where they're going before they actually make a decision to make a turn into the building. And safety, and also just to let people know this is where the entrance is. When we push the building back and free up space for parking, it also stacks the parking. When we stack the parking, it allows for more open green space than what was there before. So with that, we were able to, and this is again part of the set, you don't need to mark every page, and, you want to mark it, okay, during PB 1.2, revision of 12/12/17.
That's in the page 4.
So, this is the plan of the upper level. So this would be the level of the main level of the building. At the side that I showed you, the entrance, this is the entrance, the portico, as you see when you view it from the street. What we tried to do is, as you can see, create buffers on either side of the building. But not only the building, but also the entire parking area. So to the right of the building, there's 15 feet of green. To the left of the building, there's extra all along there. plus there's another 2.5 feet to their building. So this plus the 2.5 feet to their building. That separates the building, but it also increases the field once you get rid of the retaining wall. On this upper level, parking, there's basically parking along the building, parking along the front, and parking on the side. What we try to do is keep it simple. One of the comments that came to us at the last meeting, we've addressed, and I'll hand that out at the end of the meeting, which was the loading area. It was felt that the loading area over here was going to be a tough movement to get to. So we've actually made a revision, and we'll talk about that towards the end. Okay? The access to this building off the street, up is this ramp, down is this ramp. The reason we place the ramps where they are is because if a car goes on the up and then comes down, and because it can't find a parking spot, it can simply make a right-hand turn and go back down to the lower level to look for parking. If you did it the other way, where this was down, when you came down this way, you would have to cross across the street and then come across the street again to come back in. So it feels more natural just to make rights in and rights out instead of making across the street and across traffic. Then one of the things that we also talked about in one of the workshop meetings was how to make this more accessible to not only people, but also to the residents, but also to handicap. So kind of a big change here that happened was we actually created a ramp, a walkway, I should say, an actual walkway, to come from the street to the front door. From the front here, we created a little pocket park, so that way it's not like you just walk down the street, you make a right, and you go up to the building. Trying to create a nice little area that can be used for not only the people in the building, but also the people in the area. So you're killing like two birds with one stone. At the same time, at this point, we have steps to go up, so if you don't want to walk up the long sidewalk, you can just really go up the steps and come to the building. Or if you park your car on the lower level, you can take the steps down to the lower level. It's also important to know that even though this building would only need one means of egress out the front because we have a staircase in the back, we actually did provide alternate means of egress to get back down to grade. So at the rear of this building, we provided a stairway to get down to grade and out. From this stair, we're able to go down, actually up here, a stairway to go down to the grade and out. So there's really, from this level, there's actually 3 means of egress to get out. And the same thing happens on the lower level, and if you want to mark this one too, make it necessary. DD 1.1, they need 12/12/17. Oh, yeah, that was just the whole stuff, yeah, okay, this is exhibit A2. So, from those exits upstairs, we also have the same exits from the lower level to get out, so in case there's a fire, people don't have to run up the drive aisles. They can actually exit out this way, or exit out to the front. So both levels have full accessibility, full handicap accessibility, as well as egress accessibility. If you came to the lower level and came to park, there's a movement. You can go either way moving, in and out. This would be the lower lobby. That would basically allow you to take the elevator up to the main level or to the second floor. Handicap spots on both levels. The one thing that we do have variances for are at the rear, we have 0 property line, 0 setback. The building itself abuts the property line, but their parking abuts pretty much the property line. So we have talked to the adjacent buildings owners and have secured an agreement to be able to work to excavate out within a couple of feet and put down some shoring to be able to work together to get that to work so that we can do our work and they can be protected, that we're not going to disturb their operation and then cooperate a little bit.
That they have to return to the ordinance that
What's happening is that they have a retaining wall that's in desperate need of attention, and we're going to solve it for them, because it solves it for us.
Another thing that was revised over the multiple workshop sessions that actually I think is a good thing. The building was actually, the parking deck was actually pulled back away from the property line in the street. So what we have now is 13'11" to the upper parking deck, and I don't know if you really count the lower, because that's really on grade, but there's a retaining wall there. But also there's a ramp, so if you count the ramp that starts at 0 and then has to go up, and that's part of the structure, that is 6 feet.
John, would you consider this is not your design, it's not your design?
Okay. So, okay. The building itself, just to talk numbers and area, on the lower level we have 734 square feet, the main floor we have 6901, and on the second floor we have 7232 for a total of 14,867 square feet. The building itself will consist of, basically, on the first floor will be salon, and the second floor will be offices, with an adjacent space here for, for food, for somebody who works in the building to get food and have like a cafeteria in-house. The building design, the building design of the exterior is going to be composed of stone, stucco, glass, and metal panel. The reason for the metal panel is we're trying to give the vision that the exterior is very contemporary, but up here, the ceilings only are around 11 feet high. So there'll be 2 glass panels and a metal panel at the top, all built into the curtain wall system. The entry, as I mentioned, we created a portico. It matches the front and the back, so it is symmetrical. It's a symmetrical building. The parking decks and the whole structure will be constructed from steel construction, metal deck, concrete, poured concrete. It would be fully sprinklered, and the retaining walls would also be fully concrete. The signage that we provided on this building, as you know, this building faces Route 4. So we have signage on front and rear. The purpose of that is so that you can see from before. That's the real reason. And I know that is a variance, because we're only allowed to have one sign, and we're only supposed to have a maximum of 40 square feet. Yes, there is. There is a sign on the back of the building.
Is there actually a sign on the back of the building is bigger than the one they get proposed?
That is correct, yes. And if you take the 10% of the frontage of the building, which is about 1,200 square feet, technically by the 10% rule, we will be able to have 120 square feet of signage. But we are limited to the 40 by the ordinance, but the existing signs are greater than the 40 square feet. So what we did was, we actually had larger signs originally. We cut them down pretty drastically. And what I do when I do the design and I do the elevation, I try to, if I stand back here, which is basically how I view the building, can I see the sign? And if I can see the sign looking at it myself, then I should be able to see the sign from the street. If I can't see the sign, then there's no purpose to have the sign. So sometimes visually it's more important than just numbers. And I downsize the sign. We made it, I think, small enough, but still big enough to be seen. The elevations on the side, which is the other drawings, I think it's important just in this drawing, CG 1.5,
Which would be A5.
this is the right side elevation and the rear elevation. The rear elevation mimics the front. It has a little terrace in the back for the workers to take a break, so they don't stand out in front of the building, you know, hang out. There's a space within the confines of the building, so they can actually sit outside and have lunch if they want. The building facade will be consistent throughout. The right elevation shows how the parking deck abuts the building and comes into the street. So you can see them come up, and then there's a ramp that goes down. The last thing that I'd like to mention on this is drawing PB 1.2B A6. Yep. So being that it's so hard to understand the different levels, the existing levels, the new levels, the adjacent property levels, we did some sections for you. And what the blue area represents, and this is section 1B on drawing PB 1.2B, it shows the property line, the adjacent building that's on the south, and the 2.5 feet that they have from their building to the property line, and then the additional 5.75 feet that we have. This levels off, as I first mentioned, and that's the additional, the blue area is the additional grass area that's being provided that doesn't exist right now. At the rear, there's about 2.5 feet from the property line where there was a retaining wall that will be going away. So that's the additional, we'll say, level area that will be created by doing this project. Okay, I have a couple of summary points. The grades are difficult problems when you're designing buildings. We try to use the grades to the best we could to our advantage, not to our detriment. With the pocket park and the side buffers, I think it adds to what we call pedestrian way. It separates the building on both sides and also creates green space that wasn't there before. But taking down the old wood retaining walls and expanding the usability of their site, but also the 4-foot high wall that was taken down that was highly visible and now is gone. At the rear, it's the same. It actually makes everything visually better and more open. Our building is actually, setback is greater than the adjacent building. The parking deck is basically at the existing grade, as I had mentioned, at the existing elevation, so we're using that grade to keep the same elevation of our new building. This will be a modern building that complements its surroundings, and it's designed with no expensive spares. Height, I didn't mention the height, but we are in conformance with the height, and we're actually less than the height that's a lot permitted. The entire streetscape will be done. We will add a pocket park to use the feature for the block. The building has been modified prior from the multiple planning meetings that we had, I think, for the better, as very definite. And we're looking to use durable and long-lasting finishes. In summary, I think it's a great project, and I think it will last a long time. And if you really have any questions,
let's go to our planner first, and let him speak, and then we'll go to the members. I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 second. Mr. Costa, do you have any more copies of your January 6th letter? We have the sewer one, but we don't have the, we have one, but we're passing around. If we have one more, we can pass it this way. And just for the record, it wasn't the subcode officials, it was a site plan review committee that we met. Okay. All right, while Mr. Costa's watching, Dave, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Please bring up the drawing of the pocket park again. Is the landscaping going into the right of way with that one?
We were requested to actually bring the sidewalk and redo the entire front with pavers instead of landscaping. So this existing sidewalk is not connected to the new sidewalk. So that's why it is, just because we were told to move the sidewalk and connect it to.
Okay. Mr. Barrett has written a memo dated January 12, 2018, get a couple questions of that. In regards to the building height, are there any elevator or rooftop mechanical equipment above the building?
Yes, the elevator has a projection, a projection.
Okay, and that's,
Because the parapets are actually coming up on it.
the other retail space is not going to be used by the salon. Actually, I will,
Probably going to be just like.
it will be used by the
If
salon.
the present intentions would probably be used like that.
So, as a part of the principal salon use, as a, almost a,
Yes.
we'll call it a eatery or kind of break room.
I'm sorry, 1 second. What you're looking at is we only have one copy of Mr. Costa's report, so I'm going to pass 2 copies, so I'll pass it on each one while he speaks. I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave. I apologize.
So, the retail space is going to be used by the salon.
Yes, I think maybe drawings and or food.
See, have you seen?
The parents have asked for details regarding the proposed walls and fencing. Was that provided for proposed fencing?
Well, the side engineer, that's part of the side application.
Okay.
Mr. Barron spoke with our,
Yeah, I know that they had a conversation about the setbacks. I was just looking for things that were just, things that were architecturally safe. And I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
one other thing, John, you have a money, no plan is final, ever final?
Perfect.
Looking at the plan before we came, only about a week or 2 ago, we started to brainstorm the plan, and we have minimal change. Not on the building or anything, but let the architect explain what it is. And I think you brought it up.
We want to put this into evidence, I guess? So
Let's-
also move to the board?
Let's put it up on the board. We'll mark it as A7, define what it is.
It's just a part plan of the upper level showing the relocation of the delivery zone.
You said park plan,
Partial
partial plan?
What we did was we moved the delivery spot, because we recognized that we have the best spot for it, and it works better. So,
This is a reproduction of drawing PB 1.2, which is the first floor plan.
A7 dated today's date. It's a minimal change, a minimal suggested change, which we think makes planning better. And no doubt that as we continue to look at it, we'll probably still find good next to the building is built that we hopefully.
The original plan had the loading deliveries over here on the south side, so that would mean a truck, even if it was a small van, would have to come up the ramp, come down here, and kind of, make a 3-point turn, and hopefully, come into conflict with, long spaces. What we've done is we've actually thought about that, and made the delivery space right here, so the truck would just come up, the small van would come up, go right in, and then could back out and go right back down. We do lose 1 parking space by doing that.
However, we still qualify for the number of handicap spaces that require. As I see I thought that was your question, Mr. Chairman.
I'm waiting for him to finish. I don't want to interrupt.
All right. Any questions from the board?
I want to just hear from Mr. Costa real quick before we go to the board.
Mr. Chairman, again, the plan brought up the park area. The actual benches, everything is over the property line, over the right-of-way line. I'm not sure.
Well, we can look into it. We can work that out. How, if you want this to be just grass, it's not going to, I mean,
We'll work with you.
Now, do you think that has to be put out outside of the right-of-way, that it can't be within the right-of-way? That's a big deal. Probably with the site engineer, you give it to the ramps are at 18%, which is a little bit steep. If you have to make it 18%, which is very steep, you might want to consider putting in some sort of a heating system, something that's flat. Like not like tonight, 18%.
Well,
You're not gonna get your Lamborghini in there, honey. You're gonna have to leave that.
Rumor has
to drive.
Rumor has it that it may be sufficiently resting that one state did, depending on where the water line is.
One thing, maybe this whole structure could possibly come down slightly, so those ramping systems.
What's going to happen is because you had made a suggestion of pumps, which we sort of proposed initially, but then the principal said, no, we've got to have pumps in there. And so when we dig, we did geotech, we have a sense that we're going to be able to get another foot lower, which is going to probably give us 6%.
That might,
You know, that's all, it's okay now, no one's going to hit that ramp at 20 miles an hour.
just to give the makeup of the board, we have an attorney, an engineer, a developer, a real estate expert, an engineer, I don't know which.
That's funny you pointed it out, but I'm
That's the
sitting here,
makeup of the board,
I'm
so-
saying here, I come home, and I have probably one of the most competent boards I've paid before throughout the state.
But knowledge is power, and too much knowledge is dangerous.
Yes.
So in this case for you,
It's always been the
so you need to look at this very, very closely, because as you know, some of the other buildings down there have flooded in the past, especially once you dig down, they have flooded. And if your owner or the applicant thinks that we're being unjust to him or whatever, but I think we're gonna save him in the future, because we could have.
So he's Thompson.
Right.
It's a big kick in the head.
Right. But I'm just saying, if you don't push it down, and you can't do that, 18% is very steep. So we might have to take into some other situations, because even though there's global warming, this area isn't always.
Hasn't made it yet.
It really hasn't. The other thing, the sewer, good news is my wife gave me, the coupons for Bed Bath & Beyond for the sewer, and I went to Bed Bath to get towels for Mr. DeVito, because he's been crying for a couple of weeks, so we sent him actually a plan to do PVC, and I think that's okay to do.
Yes.
So we actually did a sketch, we sent him the PVC design that has to adhere to the manufacturer's specifications, but it went to your engineer, it went to you, hopefully that's okay. Drainage, we'll look at, obviously, when it gets started. They're going to do some drainage improvements, sewer improvements. I know the adjacent property owner is attending the audience today. We heard about the retaining walls, the difference in grade between the two. Obviously, that has to be worked out between the two property owners, otherwise it would be very, very difficult for this building to get built.
The one question I have from you, Mr. Costa, I know it goes into engineering more than architecture, but is, with what they're doing, is it going to trigger a soil movement permit as well? Maybe we can, so.
I have no problem, like, there is a soil movement for the file here.
Okay, so we'll make that part of our application tonight.
What is this application?
This way you don't have to come back. Okay.
If you don't improve the soil, they would have to come back, obviously, for that. But again,
That was one of my notes.
if they haven't filed it, quite frankly, they have to come back just for that.
It's been filed, fees have been paid.
Okay, so we can include that tonight.
Yes, please, please.
Are there cut-fill calculations with the soil movement?
Yes.
Let's get into engineering, and then we'll go over soil
Well, let's
movement.
finish with
Let's finish with the architect first, right?
You started first.
I know, I did. when I have something on my mind, I gotta get it out, or I'll forget about it. Anybody from the left side have any questions of this witness or our engineering or planner on this particular, on architectural?
Well, of what was submitted just now, like, can we talk about?
Yeah.
So just the delivery zone, the new plan you just submitted, is that I'm a little confused, is that replacing the traffic, the garbage area?
No, the garbage area will be down in the basement, in the, not the southerly, southwest corner.
The garbage is not to be seen by human eyes. It's already under.
We originally had the garbage dumpster in this area. We took it out and we put it down here in the lower level in the southwest corner. So, and that will be, accessed by, bins that the truck comes, picks up, and puts in the truck.
Good.
That's for delivery, it's just for general delivery, like a FedEx truck or a bag.
And I think that was Mr. Norman's,
So we're not sure what the parking is now, the revised parking where the dumpster was?
No, everything else stays the same, the only thing that changes is one space.
This is the upper level.
On the upper level, is one space.
Use one space.
61 spaces altogether.
Or use one space.
One space. Right, so 45 below and 16 above.
So, the two spaces that were near the garbage disposal, the original ones, are they still there? That's the way they are showing them here? Where the dumpsters were and now they're no longer, are those two spaces?
The plans that you have, the dumpster is in the lower level.
There's two different spots. There's the garbage pickup, and there's the delivery. The delivery is up top, the garbage pickup is down below. We only made a modification on delivery up top. To do that, of course, there's one space, but it made it work better.
Okay, my plan still shows the dumpster up on the upper level. Okay. Okay, sorry.
Any other questions of the architect?
Anybody?
Go ahead.
Well, you can go. I'll yield to you.
There was mention of our redevelopment plans. Did anybody look at our redevelopment plans and see how this compares to what the redevelopment plans would call for?
Yeah, we have a plan, we have a plan, we have a plan.
I'm asking if you looked at the redevelopment plan. You mentioned the redevelopment plan several times.
What's happened, from my experience, there are a couple of parcels in the area, I don't know if they're actually contiguous, but they're designated as an area in need of redevelopment. This particular site is not designated as an area of redevelopment. However, it's being proposed to be redeveloped.
Well, that's my point, is this plan consistent with the redevelopment plans that we're having idea or visions for the rest of the downtown there? Or is this building going to be completely at odds with what the redevelopment plans would call for?
I think the plan is better served to answer that. If I look at this plan and I look at what we have across the street, we're really doing something good. This is a great addition. I'm an advocate, and normally I'm supposed to push the client's interest, but this one I truly and absolutely not getting to believe. This is just a fabulous solution for this area.
You mentioned at the beginning of your testimony about the parking, why it couldn't be in the back. But if I'm sitting on the street, I can't see the parking anyway now. So why would it have made sense to have the parking in the back and being able to lower the ramps?
You will be able to see parking when you're
Up the top?
It's about 7 feet up, okay? And there's, you will have a railing there. You will see the ramp going up. You will see the cars. It's 7 feet up, is right here. So from the street, you should be able to see the parking because we're about 14 feet back from the property line, about 20 feet back from the street.
Can you see the parking now at the present building?
Yes, you can, because the finished elevation of this building
and has parking in the back. The present
There's
building.
parking on the side
And
and in the back.
most of the back. What is the clear distance in the lower level?
8'6",
Have you
roughly, because we.
checked
haven't
with
checked the
our,
structure.
with our
There's only
emergency?
2 feet of structure.
Well, did anybody check with our emergency equipment to see if it can get down there? Our specific equipment?
Well, you're not gonna bring a hook and ladder down.
No, but there might be the emergency or the ambulance. And it's gonna get up to 18% ramp. No, down is 12%. Up is 18. No, I'm talking about up, oh, no, both,
Well, either way.
Either way, you're not gonna get anything up that ramp.
No, but 8'6" is clear on the lower
Yes.
level, and that's a 12% ramp, and that would be
Mhm.
applicable for an ambulance.
I think
It's gonna hit.
they're gonna, I
Well,
think
it's-
they're gonna
it's a-
go up anyway.
We're certainly not rebuilding because it works. It's too much breathing, it works.
And just for the record, the three commissions, the fire department and the police department will issue copies of these plans as well. With a notice, with a
Well,
notice.
but that's only as good until
Right.
when they can't get the equipment in.
No, I agree,
So
I agree.
I'm
I'm just,
working on semantics.
Which means we have not heard from them.
we have not heard from them.
The other thing is, it's
It's new.
more of an issue for the
We haven't
future.
been doing it, so we just started.
The sign in the back, if they build a building behind you, who's gonna see the signs?
Say that again, Mr. Mayor.
You said right now that the lot behind you is vacant, correct?
Correct.
When somebody builds a building there, won't they block your signs?
Roadway lot.
That has been leased, from what I understand, to, the mall across the street, on a long-term situation. It's been vacant for 40 years, 45 years, 40 years, maybe more. 40 years has been saying we're gonna have to get it, and we have to deal with what we have in front of us now. What may happen or may not happen, it just may never happen. Why would you want to stop something and give us an improvement? Because maybe the building is going to be vacant. It's been vacant for a long time. And it's in its highest and best use right now, on First Street.
What's the total height of this compared to what's there now?
I don't know exactly what the adjacent building is, but we're under the requirement.
No, I'm asking, the building that's there now, how much taller will this building be relative to that? In terms of where the top elevation of the road is gonna be?
I don't know what the exact height is of the adjacent building, because obviously you can't measure 35, 40 feet in the air. I think our building will be roughly about the same height. Roughly about the same height, because we're actually lower, we're about 5 feet lower than the 42 feet total that we're allowed, 35 plus the extra couple feet. So we're gonna be about the same height.
I think the mayor was asking the current structure that's there now, the height of that compared to what you're proposing, the differential.
It'll be about the same, because that
Okay.
building is up on stilts, our building is technically up on stilts.
Any other questions of the architect?
Yes. I must say that as a result of our site plan review meetings, most of my major concerns were covered, and it worked out pretty good. One question I had's been answered. Mr. Montero, if you go to your sheet 1.2, okay, you have, on the right side or the north side of that upper level, you have a handicap space with a planter next to it. And that planter is roughly next to the walkway and then over the handicap ramp.
This space here?
Yes, that one.
That's going away, that's becoming our loading space.
That's the one that's going to be mounted.
Okay. All right. So then you're only going to have one handicap, or you moving the handicap?
We only have one, we have the total required handicaps for the whole building.
So you counted the ones below,
Yeah, two below,
okay.
below.
Okay, because I had a question there about the maneuverability coming out of that.
That's exactly, you raised it, that's why we moved. it.
Okay, all right. All right, let's, I can't remember exactly everything. Okay,
I remember the good things.
all right, let's go over to, 1.5 and 1.6. Okay, in fact, let's go to, 1.5 first. 1.5, you have the rear elevation. On the rear elevation, you have a rear sign up on a raised parapet. Okay, when I look at the right-hand elevation above it, we're missing the rear parapet where that sign would be.
This is the rear elevation.
Yeah,
The
now,
sign is here.
that's the front.
No.
Well, you have a similar one.
Oh, yes, yeah, you're correct, This would be replicated. I think.
Correct,
Yes, you're
correct.
replicated. Same thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to talk about signs, and I want to talk about the streetscape that you mentioned. All right?
Should I go back to the different drawing?
No, we're okay, I think. Your site plan, original conditions shows 3 street trees that you're removing. Well, your project site plan, not your personal drawing. We have to replace those, and what I see now, they're not there. We have to make provision along that street walkway, that streetscape, so to speak, with 3 trees. So you're gonna have to put a pit in for 3 trees.
You want them here, you want them first elsewhere in town?
Excuse me?
You want them here, you want them elsewhere in town?
No, I want them on that street, personally. You have room there. I think when you look, you'll see you have room. Okay.
We actually, because of the way that we were told to move the sidewalk and planting forward, we have plenty of room.
Yeah, we only need 3. You could get probably 2 at the center and 1 at the south end. All right. So keep go. There you go. And that's that green area where your pencil is now. You can correct. So you need to show street trees, right? And that tree pit detail, Mr. Costa will give to you for your drawing. Standpoint of furnishing the trees, you can make a deal with the with the tree commission, for a fee. They'll plant them. They'll furnish and plant them. Mr. Costa will give you the name of the person. Let's go to the most important thing, the signs. We've already mentioned that the current sign out there is at the rear of the building. It's a large sign, and as I understand it, the purpose of that is because of the high visibility from the Route 4 corridor. Okay. Right now, you're proposing a large sign at the rear, which we just looked at, and a similar one in the front. All right. I think you were also proposing on the lower level and on the front elevation a small sign with a D/M on it. All right. Let's see if I can get that to yes, that's on 1.4 is the front. You got a D/M, and you have a similar one on the rear.
So you're referring to this?
The lower, yes.
And the purpose of that sign, when you park your car, you're not going to be looking up there
No.
for the sign, you're going to be looking.
I think you call that sign B.
Correct.
All right.
So basically have,
The Well, your logic's only half right. Because on 1.5, where you show it, what, that drawing again, where it says rear elevation, your sign is below grade. And I seriously believe that people are gonna see that. That's for the parking next door.
That's right, for the parking downstairs.
It's a useless sign. All right. Now, at one time you had a monument sign, and we eliminated that, correct? Okay, so for the record, there is no monument sign. All right. My opinion is to eliminate or reduce what I would call over signage or sign pollution, that I could see the functionality of the large front and rear signs up at the top parapet. The lower ones, the back one, which I just said was totally useless. The front one, you don't really need. And that's my opinion. All right? If you want to take it up with the board, we can go with the further discussion with the board.
Mr. Member, just repeat what you just said, just so we get that right.
Well, you want the language, or you want...
No, I want to hear what you just said again.
Okay. The applicant has currently a large sign at the rear. The purpose of that is because of its Route 4 corridor visibility. He's proposing to replace that with the one on the new building that's shown on drawing 1.5, that's up at the top of the building on the parapet. All right. Similar sign, it would be in the front of the building. He's proposing to put a similar sign on the front elevation on the front parapet. Okay. Right now, the applicant's proposing two smaller signs. Same sign, one each for the front and one for the rear. That sign in the rear is below grade. So functionally it's useless. Okay. Regardless of how you look at it. The one in the front, I believe we don't need, because we've already yielded for these two large signs.
Okay. All right, so it's a smaller sign.
The two smaller
I
ones,
just wanted to clarify
okay,
that.
one of which I'm recommending be removed. The rear one, in my opinion, is useless.
I might agree with about 50% of the comment.
So half the signage.
Half the sign. I think the sign in the front is direction. It shows the location of the door. You're not going to do that. People are going to be walking in. It's tasteful. The problem with the sign in the back, I probably agree with. I'm not going to turn around and I probably agree with you. But the sign in the front, it's a little different about the sign, but it's directional.
We are giving you more signage than is permitted now.
I agree.
Okay.
But it's less signage than what's on the building now.
That large sign in the front, when you come down the street, I don't know how you're going to miss that. That is going to be highly visible.
Why don't we hold it to the end?
Well, but I'm giving you my opinion. I want the other board members, they have opinions also. You want to hold?
You know my concern always with your opinion. It carries a great deal of weight.
Well, all right. Those are my major concerns on the architectural presentation. As I said earlier, first, the large concerns we ironed out in the site plan review, which you've incorporated.
Michael?
Just one question. I need to get a little clarity on this retail space that may or may not be...
It might not even take place. What's happened is, it was the developer's original plan. Normally a salon like this sells accoutrements, dresses, scarves, cosmetics, jewelry. That was the original plan. However, now that he's looking at it, he's even wondering whether he's even going to do it. and he might just use it for the store itself. So my comment is that it's meant to be an accessory to the operation, as simple as that. This existing facility also jewelry, sold scarves, sold dresses, pocketbooks, things that you would find chic, we'll say.
So, the current plan is first floor, current plan is that first floor is salon.
Yes.
Second floor is office, call center, and that's all the owner's business.
Yes,
There's
it's
not
all
going
owner
partition, no
occupied.
tenants.
No, this is meant to be an owner-occupied facility.
Okay.
Good, Michael? Damon Young?
I'm not understanding. Which aspect of the use are you may not do? You're keeping the salon on the, you're still keeping the salon.
Yeah, we salon on the first floor.
And offices on.
On second.
And any chance that the salon is going to expand to the other level?
And they should be so lucky, but I don't think that that's gonna happen. Our second floor operation is distinct from the call center.
Let's make one more comment about that back sign, because again, I don't see the purpose of it. The way the building's oriented, you're only gonna be able to see it coming from Route 4. I said the sign in the back, if you look at the way the building's oriented, you can't see it if you're coming westbound on Route 4. You don't see it if you're coming the other direction. And if I'm coming on the east side, I have no idea how to get there from there.
I will tell you from my own experience that the sign on the back of that building is dramatically important. Dramatically important in personal experience. I agree that the one below grade is probably can be surrendered, but the sign on the back of the building is monumentally important.
How are we going to see it driving past it?
It's going to be seen. You will see it as you see the sign now. If you go there and drive past now, you see that sign, and you see it going in both directions. And eventually it's easier to see it going.
I don't think you'll be able to see it, but that's my own opinion.
Just a quick question on the parapet. Is that gonna be sufficient to do the screening for the utilities?
Yeah, the carpet, is in the middle, there's also another carpet on the, this parapet. That's about 3.5 feet up. The units are only about 4 feet tall. So when you're standing low and you're looking up, unless the unit was 9 feet.
So it's sufficient, that's all I need to know. Left side? Mr. Grasso?
What is the square footage of the area that what is the square footage of the area that you were mentioning that would sell accessories or things like that?
I think it was about 2,000 square feet. 1,300.
1,300.
1,300 square feet.
Okay, you said possibly that would be some type of, did you mention something like a cafeteria or something for employees, or something like that?
It could be a cafeteria for the players, it could be a combination. We haven't started, it's a plan in progress. Right now, the tentative plan from my conversation with the principal is, it's going to wind up being accessories. Clothing, bags, jewelry, cosmetics, just what makes sense. It's a natural component.
According to our zoning ordinance and things like that, if this application is approved, is this something that would be allowed if it's a permitted use, so if down the road the owner decided that he wanted to rent the space, it's a permitted use that would be allowed to be rented?
Still be a permitted use.
Does that impact the parking in any way?
We'd have to come before the board if they wanted to rent it for something involving food.
Food, medical.
Food requires a health application.
Right, but besides that, I mean,
That's a whole different
the ordinance that we have that's relatively new is if there's a food handler's license, you'd have to come before the board for site plan.
Food handler, that's a whole different building function.
Oh, it's a site plan application.
Yeah, that's a whole different situation.
But you're not doing that.
That's not
If you're gonna do it, you have to come back.
Yeah.
If it didn't want to rent it, if there was not food or medical, it could just be something rented. I mean, something
That's
rented
correct.
as a gift shop.
As long as it falls within the zone.
I couldn't even remember the word gift shop, but yeah, that's it, that's.
Okay.
Ms. Baldwin?
One more question. As far as the signing, when do you plan on turning it off in the evening?
Oh,
Normally, in theory, they shut down at 11 o'clock. That seems to be what everybody's been shutting down, 11 o'clock. That's what the intention is.
Do we have does our ordinance dictate any time?
Well, that's the C2, so it's 24 hours.
Mr. Costa?
I think the C2, I don't think it matters.
I think everybody shuts down there around 11.
I don't think our lighting is contained in the site plan ordinance, it's separate, so.
It's not intrusive in any event. Normally, you would shut them down. I think that's what the store did before. 11 o'clock is on time and stuff.
I would say the sooner the better. My only comment, so 11 o'clock, I wouldn't want it to go past 11 o'clock.
If that's a condition you want, no.
You good? Mr. Castle?
I have a question about the park area in the front, pocket park. You stated that there was intention to be available to the public, for public use. Well, it's going to be off the top, so, you know, there's not going to be any restrictions on who can use it.
I believe that our planner wants to weigh in again.
Yes, just real quick regarding the lighting for the signage.
Mhm.
That's actually in section 416-48B. All business signs and all spotlights and floodlights used to illuminate any sign shall be extinguished by 11 p.m. or upon the close of business service by the signs of lighting, whichever lack occurs. So either 11 o'clock or if you go later, if they close at 11:30, 11:45, so on and so forth.
Somebody told me once and all
Okay, one more.
that.
One more question?
It's not a problem.
Okay. You done? Okay.
Yes.
Sign illumination.
Say that again.
The sign, the two big sign illumination. What are you proposing? In goosenecks or what?
Individually illuminated, internally illuminated.
You're internally illuminated.
It's not a box sign or anything?
No, the individual letters internally illuminated. Or backlit, one of it.
High-end pastry.
It won't be a box with a
Right.
plastic piece of plastic. It will be individual letters, plastic looking inside.
Okay. I have one more question. Oh. What type of fire protection do you have? Sprinkler system or?
Sprinkled, fully sprinkled.
Fully sprinkled, okay.
It has to be by code.
Basically for the record.
Not a thought.
Question about, you've got that kind of pocket park, and that's gonna be an attractive little area. The ramps are open into the building all night. Just, I don't know if this fits within the architectural design, but what thoughts, what concerns from a security standpoint, and what kind of steps might be taken to?
The lower level will be lit very well, obviously, because the lighting is a big deterrent for any kind of bad activity. There's not gonna be any gates closing this off. It's gonna be open. There'll be a key card system to get into the building at the lower level, and there'll be a key card system to get into the upper building after certain hours.
But the underground garage will be accessible 24 hours. There'll be very little visibility on that, right?
It's not any different from what's next door now. You remember, that's an open pylon garage, same thing. I wouldn't be surprised that the principal puts in a security system. It's just the nature of the beast.
Though, you just raised a question. I'm assuming that the handicap ramp and that stair adjacent?
Talking about here?
Yes, they'll be, have internal lighting onto the walkway?
No, remember we put poles along here?
Okay, so there is light.
Yeah.
All right,
You asked for it.
you're so good to me. Can I give you?
Well, listen, you credit what credit is due.
Any
questions of the architect?
Any last question? Yeah, I got that. Any last questions of the architect? Okay, thank you so much. Call your next witness.
I have my engineer here, except that he's outnumbered. We have Mr. Costa's report. We have no issues, we take no issues with it at this point. But my engineer's here if anybody has any questions. Instead of running through a dog and pony show, Mr. Costa issued a report, they spoke. We have no issues with his, we have no issues with it.
That included.
Can the engineer provide any enlightenment on the earlier question?
I'm sorry.
Just give, I'm sorry, the sirens will be done in a second, let's just take a few seconds. A few years ago, you're running out on. Counselor? I'm sorry, would you, while we have a few seconds, provide your card to our attorney? You did already? Okay. Oh, we way ahead. All right. You got the phone. All right, so while we're waiting for him to come back, it appears that they want to waive their testimony on the engineer unless...
I don't think so.
My premise is, I'm pretty confident we can work with Mr. Costa.
I still think that the board should have an overview of the engineering,
Ryan?
right?
Yes.
Yeah, I like
Yes,
to
we're doing
review.
application, it's not, you
No
know.
problem. It's not unusual for me to say, it's not unusual for me to have questions.
The applicant's engineer still testifies.
Dressed up in here,
Well, I'm gonna be standing right where the architect is. I couldn't hear him? Oh.
Oh, you can move that microphone closer, move the microphone closer to you, and they pick up pretty well. Good evening.
Mr. Shortino, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your full name for the record.
First name is Brian, last name is Shortino, Shortino.
Mr. Sotino, would you give us your quick detail?
I have an undergraduate degree in landscape architecture from Rutgers University. I have a master's of science degree in civil engineering from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. I'm a licensed professional engineer, licensed professional planner, and licensed landscape architect in the state of New Jersey. Been involved in the field of landscape architecture for 40 years and civil engineering for 36 years.
I offer him as an expert. I know that his credentials are a little wanting, it seems, but I would offer him and ask if he could join.
And he's testified before, is that correct?
I don't know if I've ever been before this board. If I had, it was a long time ago.
Okay.
I've been,
Mr. Chairman, all I can say, Brian, I know him for many, many years. Midland Avenue House was one of his greatest accomplishments in Southwood when I was the engineer. I don't know if they weren't there, I think you were there. And quite frankly, I think the attorney for the board tonight was actually the attorney for that application.
Yes,
And this gentleman was the engineer for that application.
I remember it well.
The only thing you could talk about would be the type of sanders that he wanted to put in, I think $600 or $700 that night, but other than that,
I would offer Mr. Shortino as an expert in engineering. Brian, would you take us on an engineering tour of this project? And please keep your voice up as best as before. Mr. Mayor, Mr. can't hear anybody.
Did everybody get a chance to see Mr. Costa's report? That's, pass around? Hold on. You know what, give it back to me, Mr. Chairman.
Give it back.
Rob, do you need a copy?
No, I have.
Okay.
It's got committed to memory.
Mr. Chairman, we're trying to send these out by email, but maybe, I'm not sure.
It should have been printed out and just wasn't. I'll talk to the clerk about it. Not a problem.
I thought we had almost everything worked out on this, but I guess we.
You know, maybe we should have, no, go ahead, I'm kidding.
Get me one, so we'll price over that. Brian, take us on to a review.
Okay, basically the whole project has been summarized by the architect. But our office did prepare the civil engineering drawings for the site. Essentially, we did design for the landscaping, the lighting, the grading, the drainage, the utility connection. So we have a set of specimen drawings that the board has before them. This specific drawing is, we entitled it a landscape rendering, and what we indicate in this plan is basically just a graphical representation of the site plan and the landscape plan. Colorized it, we just feel it gives a visual, comprehensive summary of what's being proposed for the site.
This landscape plan and the landscape, today's date.
So this has a date of January 17, 2000. As you tell, the types of colors, the grades are concrete, the grades are landscape materials, and it's a building. So again, the majority of the site improvements have been explained by the architect for the site. I'll just go, so I guess, I'll go through more or less the engineering details. There was a testimony on the site that there are two driveways on the site along Johnson Avenue. The northerly driveway will be two-way, and that would be able to access the upper level parking area. The southerly driveway will be two-way, and that would access the lower level parking area. As mentioned, the upper level parking has 16 spaces. We did introduce the modification where the loading area will be relocated to the northerly side, so we are using one space. So that would be 16 spaces on the upper level and 45 spaces on the lower level. To summarize the grading, we have a grading plan for this site. The lower level, we do have lower level, doesn't get a lot of surface runoff because it's only open areas along the westerly side and the southerly side, and it does get some runoff from the driveway leading into it. But we do have inlets on the lower level, and those inlets will tie into a dry well that we have in this southeasterly area, which also, with respect to the roof runoff and the parking lot runoff in the front, we have some inlets in the parking lot area, and all that stormwater will be collected in the dry well, and then there's an overflow. And what we've actually done, and this has been in conformance with the request by the planning board engineer, we indicated the overflow in Johnson Avenue, which would now be a new inlet in Johnson Avenue, and we have indicated a storm sewer pipe which would connect to the existing stormwater runoff system at the intersection with Grand Avenue. So that is a new improvement just with respect to stormwater that this project is proposing for the site, and it does give an improvement to the overall runoff in Johnson Avenue. Again, we did the work session with the planning board. There's some of the concerns were floods at Grand Avenue, and there was concern maybe that would back up at the lower level. So we did agree, and we indicated on a plan they put a check valve in on the lower level parking. This also was a comment to add pumping system if that was deemed necessary for the level L, which we already also agreed to. Then with respect to other site improvements, we have indicated the area lights, they're single area lights, decorative lights along Johnson Avenue, an additional one on the northerly side to provide safe and adequate lighting. As you can tell by the landscape plan, we have a significant landscape plan where the pocket park is. We have put decorative trees along the northerly side and a screen in that northwesterly side for the adjacent building. And then along the property to the south, we've indicated some low-level fencing material to provide some way. There is mention of the retaining walls. There will be concrete walls. As described by Mr. Costa's letter, we have to provide structural calculations for them, which we will do. One item that we'd like to further discuss is the requirement or the request by Mr. Costa's office for sanitary sewer. The existing building at this time only has a lateral connection at this southeasterly corner, and the sanitary sewer ties into the lateral which ties into the system at Grand Avenue. With respect to that, the applicant, our client, has informed me he's never had any difficulties with sanitary sewer at this site. We'd like to be able to use that existing connection for this site. So in this specific request, that we would hopefully request that we would be allowed to continue with that. The reason why we say that is because to put the new sanitary sewer in, it can be done, but it appears all the other properties are developed for the site, and that sanitary sewer would essentially act as a lateral just for our facility. So we're requesting if possibly that can be relooked at and allow this existing sanitary sewer lateral to remain. We would televise it. If it's in deteriorated shape or can't be used, then we would agree to put the sanitary sewer in. If it's acceptable, we would request that we be allowed to continue. And the only other reason for that is the other thing is that to put the sanitary sewer in, in Johnson Avenue requires a state DOJ permit, which would take 4 to 6 months, and we just feel it may be unnecessary to do that if we have a sanitary sewer lateral that's capable of handling this existing or proposed building.
Keeping in mind that the point is that we're going to video the sanitary to make sure it's in good shape. This may become moot if it's in deteriorating condition. But if it's not in deteriorating condition, the building's never had any issue before, they continue to use what's there. But if it's not, then we have no choice, then we have to replace. So it has to abide the moment, and it'll abide the moment which your engineer wants you. Anything else?
Well, I mean, we're doing, there'll be new connections with respect to the utilities for the site. I mentioned the landscaping, the lighting. I believe, in summary, I agree with the review letters that we were given by Mr. Costa's office. We're in agreement with all the items. It's just a sanitary sewer item that we're requesting that be reconsidered whether it's necessary or not, and we can still use the existing sanitary sewer lateral if it's still in a condition that's acceptable.
Any questions you might have?
Let's go through the parking. Nobody's mentioned parking tonight. Nobody's mentioned the parking.
Well, we've indicated how many spaces are required. What's required by your ordinance is we're required to have 74 spaces. We indicated 62, and with the modification that would be 61. So, my understanding that's a design waiver. The planner is here, which would provide testimony on the request for the design waiver for parking.
Question about that change. Again, I just noticed this. The original loading zone was 23 feet in depth. It was over on the left-hand side. The new one is now only 18 feet, and it's kind of in the path of the incoming traffic coming up from the street. Is there adequate room? If you have a delivery truck in there that's any bigger than a car, it's going to be way beyond that 18 feet. is there adequate space for someone to come up that ramp and take that left turn on the parking spot?
Well, we think there are, and most of the loading for this site is not is gonna be like the UPS type vehicle. It's not gonna be any type of large box truck that's 30 feet long or anything like that. So, and we've also done it intentionally because, as was discussed, we really had a dead-end situation where this loading is now, and that allows us to pull into this loading area, and you can do your movements to get out. Where out here, it was actually much worse because no truck could use that area at all. You had to be parked in the aisle and then do a three-point turn. So, and even if it was a little bit of a longer truck, your movement as you enter in this driveway would be the left turn movement to access the remainder of the parking area.
It works.
I believe Mr. Costa asked for turning templates, did you not?
We did.
Yeah, let's hear from Mr. Costa on this.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you know how I'm always big on plumbing. I'm gonna be 56, and my plumbing is almost shot. So I mean, the sanitary is poor. We went back and forth, and I handed out, again, this came up, we don't know where the lateral is. The lateral, quite frankly, could be on your neighbor's property. Again, around and around we went. I discussed up the line, we went to PVC, we went to the higher strength PVC.
And even that, I'd be concerned if it's wet.
14,000 square feet. We don't want to see more sewage in the streets of Riveridge. It comes down to that simple statement. So I don't think this is going to make or break this development. We're going to be there a long time. What is the age of the sewer?
I do not know the age of the sewer, but we're willing to.
I remember as a child, there was a ski shop there. So imagine
Everything
the same, it was the.
Us, Steve Us.
But again, we're willing to televise and provide the proper documentation.
My personal opinion, McDonald's came in, new sewer, new manhole. When they throw grease in the manhole, we know who they are. Same thing here. You pick up the lid, you look at it, you throw the grease in, you know who you are. It's so easy.
We're not perfect.
Thank you. But you know,
There's a salon, there's soap, and soap
there's
can be just as
soap,
bad as
there's soap byproducts, and this is
Why don't we let him buy the event? I mean, if this, you're gonna control it.
I don't control anything.
I believe
think
Mr. DeVito said before he was gonna comply with your letter.
Right.
So, that was what you said.
End of discussion?
Mayor, the only thing in my letter, it says the streetscape, because I know we went around and around that the streetscape, if we weren't gonna do here, and ultimately we're showing pavers and the sidewalk, technically, that's not the streetscape, because I think that was discussed earlier, but I'm not sure I heard decorative lighting. This board needs to, just, whatever you want, because I don't want to get into the same situation on the corner by Marginal Road with that gentleman. If the board wants the streetscape, then they need to supply the plan to show the ultimate streetscape, so there's no back and forth between the applicant and obviously the borough. What was the ultimate decision of the board? But quite frankly, I think the sewer is paramount. Abandon the old one, if it's on, and I know the attorney is here from the adjacent property owner, if it goes through his property, abandon the property. The other thing, I know I brought this up in the past, as far as the retaining wall, this property is higher. When the retaining wall on the adjacent property is removed, the question I asked at one of the meetings, when they push the snow will actually fall onto your property and into the lower level on top of the cars. Is that parapet wall, or the retaining wall coming up on it? Yes. Okay, so that's changed. I just want to make sure of that.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'll go back to the parking, I have a question. Right now, you did the calculation based as if it's the split between the office and the retail. What would the requirement be if this was all retail?
You have to do the calculation, but
87,
would be 87.
and we're having 61. So if we went permitted use here, and you went full retail, we're going to be 30% short based on that. No, you wouldn't, if it's a permitted use.
You change the use. You have the variance, change the use.
No, we're granting the variance.
You granted the variance for this use.
for this use. I think that I would definitely think, you know,
It's mixed use, I don't know how you define that.
and we think
I'm sorry?
this variance would be for this use, office, up top, salon, and then a 1,300 square foot retail. If at some point they want to convert the entire structure to 14,000 square feet to retail, I believe they would have to come back to this board for relief.
It would trigger a return to this board for amended site plan approval.
I would put it, no matter what, if there is an affirmative vote, I would absolutely put that in the resolution. But I think they would have to come back no matter what.
I think it will.
Any other questions of my engineer?
Yes, one more question. What's your opinion on the slope of the ramps?
The slope of the ramp, I'm not disagreeing with Mr. Costa, 18% is a steep slope. Just for comparison, the residential site improvement standards, 60. Mr. Costa correct, if you had a road, it could be up to 16%, but in our opinion, this is only approximately 40 feet long, 18%. You do your initial acceleration, but it's not a prolonged acceleration like a 60% road.
It's, and
Again,
it's,
you're gonna have, there's no question, 18
mhm.
to a flat area of 2%. If you're not driving an SUV or something, if you have,
It's gonna be a problem going up and coming.
no question, Corvette, stay home. You're not getting your hair done. Any of those type of vehicles, it's gonna be difficult.
As I said earlier on, our preliminary geotechnical tells us that we're going to be able to monitor the grade. But I can't say that.
But then, Mr. Costa, maybe you should require some kind of profile before we approve the final plan to make sure that the angles are gonna be okay.
18 works. Do we need a profile? I think we all know. I can ask.
No, if they're going to change, if they said if they're going to change, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, if you lower it, I think it would work. Obviously, you need more run on the ramp in order to make this work, and maybe you have to slope a little bit more. The issue is you have the ADA parking right there. Under ADA, it would only be 2% in each direction, so that area has to be flat. If you bring it down, you're probably going to lose a couple of spaces in the bottom, or they're going to be compromised because they're going to be much.
I would ask
Not much
that
height.
you have confidence in this developer who's investing an incredible amount of money in this project. He knows this is just, he's not going to build something that doesn't work. And we're almost certain that we're going to get another foot, which is going to reduce this dramatically. But I can't say that. So let's assume it's going to be 18 and everything else will be serendipity.
I still think it's too much.
Continuing on the ramps?
Go ahead.
Okay. On these two ramps, we have your points of inflection where one, the ramp hits the flat surface, whether it's going up or down. Is there some way we can minimize the, let's, for the sake of discussion, say bottoming out when you're going down? Can you put some kind of a transition in there?
It's called the vertical curve.
Yes, a vertical, well, I know that,
That's
but,
the
yeah.
method you do, so that would happen
you are-
in this area.
Right.
You don't try to do a drastic.
Well, that's what you're showing now.
Correct, but it has to be, it has to be it would be gridded out.
Right, so
with that transition area in both ways.
So you're gonna have some kind of a vertical curve? Yeah.
You would see, once you make the turn.
Yeah, I know.
You would see 5 or 6%.
Yeah.
And just say you stop there and open the car door.
Now,
You'll actually crawl out of the car, roll down the ramp. Again, there's got to be some practicality. And we talked about this at length.
The other portion of that is, in your final design on those ramps, the surface itself, can we have some kind of a finish that will provide a little more grip?
Well,
Like tining or something like that?
I think you have to keep, if you're going to go at 18%, like anything like today's date,
Yep.
If you went there this morning, or at 11 o'clock,
Mhm.
you got 18% rate. Let's just say that no one went out there for some housing.
That's what that's what I'm saying.
So I think we either gotta think about heating the ramp, because let's be realistic, it's not going to work. It's,
The applicant says that he did, it's okay.
If we cannot lower it, well,
We'll leave
That that doesn't address the angle.
if we can drop the grade by a foot, that solves the problem. Okay? If
The
we
whole
can't
building
drop-
down.
Yeah, if we can't drop the grade by a foot, well, it solves the problem, we work. We just have to go.
Still think you need some more operation on that. That's what I'm saying. You're done with that. I just put it over here.
your ankle point, you're referring to a flat.
The PI.
Frank, your wheelbase,
I hear what you're saying.
your wheelbase, you're gonna scrape the bottom of a car. A truck, absolutely not. An SUV, not. A car, smaller cars, yeah.
And that's where we, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's practically, it's not gonna work.
My comment again is, if we're able to drop the floor, we reduce the grade.
You cannot drop it.
Then we're going to come to feed it. And we're only going to hit that at 20 miles an hour. This is the compromise that we
Instead,
instead.
I'm saying is maybe your architect, your structural engineer, Brian,
Yeah,
we can look at that, and maybe we need to modify that area for it to work properly.
We can work, we'd be willing to work with you on it, assuming that.
Yeah, so we only encourage and operate.
And we can back you on computer and let you keep going.
I hate to see the owner, if this is approved, spending a lot of money and then driving in the first day, and his buffalo is in the street on Johnson
And
Avenue, because I'm sure he's gonna put somebody.
And if a 1 foot difference, you're still gonna have a 15% slope.
It's gonna be, there's no question, it's,
But say that, by lowering it a foot, you still have 15%, so it's still steep.
and again, what it is, once you start playing with the grade layer, once you start pushing it down, then the ramp to get to the bottom level
Yeah.
becomes steeper, and and then you need to get underneath the upper level. So as you push this down, you don't push that back. Now you gotta go in with the Corvette, otherwise you're gonna take the roof of the car off. So you need to play with this very closely.
But
You need to look
was-
at it.
was there-
I would ask that we may, if you see fit to approve it, please, I'd like to get one of those resolutions that you did. That if it's subject to Mr. Costa's approval, he's been around in town for a long time, it's gonna work. We're not gonna build something that doesn't work, it's too much money. And it's, until we start excavating and seeing how far we can get, we're not gonna know. And maybe, this all may be a moot conversation.
Was there testimony how many people could be serviced in the salon and how many employees are gonna be?
If necessary, but
It is necessary.
It's, how many employees in the salon is not as relevant as what your ordinance requires, because it already makes the value judgments and improved use. You need X amount of spaces. We're short a couple spaces, but for office upstairs, it's not gonna be 100% occupied because these people travel. But I have the principle here, but the salon.
Well, my point is, and I'll just say, I'll make my point direct. The building's too big. You have a lot of space, and if you had shrunk it a little bit, you wouldn't have the issue with the grading, you wouldn't have the issue with the parking. And the bulk would not be there, and it'd be more consistent with what our other redevelopment plans are.
The building is not 1 foot bigger than is needed for the operation. This operation, by the way, the salon actually exists. So he knows what the salon needs. So it's not what he wants.
That's what I asked, how many stations or how many people you'd be able to have down there. It's a big building.
It is a big building, but it works. And it's a big building in an area of big building.
I just want to know the call center operation. The call center operation, what's the staffing on that going to be?
The call center operation is talking about just somebody answering the phone, one day, one day.
Is it an outbound telemarketer?
No, it's a call center operation for our facility.
Just for that
Yeah,
space?
it's our facility.
Okay, so they're taking appointments?
Yeah, taking appointments in our facility. It's not a call center operation for some third party, it's us.
Okay.
While we have your engineer here, let's go over soil movement and how much soil do you figure is going to be moved there? What would be your plans with it? Sure.
Mr. DeVito, does your client own the site presently? Does your client own the site presently?
Yes.
So you want to give me the...
No, they can do what they want.
You go down and you fight yourself the other way. Yeah, I know, you said that.
Okay, just with respect,
We got Mr. Costa back. Mr. Costa, we're going to talk about soil movement for a minute.
Without the lights.
okay, just with respect to soil movement, the applicant, our client, has estimated that it's between 8,000 and 10,000 cubic yards of soil being removed from the site.
On the soil movement? Well, you've got to make an application which includes your calculations and your paths of travel and everything else, standard soil. Well, we know that, but...
You're going to try to keep that soil in a place, put that soil,
Do it properly.
keep it in town, or?
Well, the topsoil's got to stay in town, but there's no topsoil on that site. It's so bituminous. You could take that. We don't want that. We got enough of that.
So, I mean, basically, all kidding around, make a right, go on.
Yeah,
Do not do that,
but-
do not do it, and that's it.
But you have to make a soil movement application, correct?
It's already,
There is one file?
soil application. Right.
I've never seen an application.
Well, I think you better review it, because it's a sizable amount.
I can't review it, but you have made an application. There's a sort, you have to, if you go over a certain amount of cubic yards, which you are,
Right.
you have to make an application, and it would have to be in front of this board, you have to make that application.
Nothing, right? It's different than soil erosion.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that there is another application that now needs to be filed other than the soil applications that you've given me?
I don't know what you have.
Soil applications?
Mr. Costa, have you seen this soil movement
No,
application
no.
dated November 7, 2017? Can I just hand you a copy?
I believe it's in a box downstairs.
Yes, I'm holding soil moving application dated November 9th, 2017.
Okay, that's good. All right, so it's in order, Mr. Costa?
You scared me.
Full cost is full.
Cost me $2,350.
For the application?
Yeah.
That's cheap.
You
It's
better raise that.
All right, while he's reading that, are any more questions for the engineer on what he's testifying on?
You went fairly fast over your stormwater disposal. You have the dry well in the southeast corner,
That's correct.
right there. And you're hooking your roof drains and all to that.
That's correct.
Okay. And you have an overflow that's gonna go to River Edge storm system.
So a new inlet we're installing.
Right, okay. And you're gonna have a check valve on that.
There's a check valve on the lower level, not on the.
Okay, all right. And I believe you said you're going to have a pump system down there?
Correct, wherever you see.
And that pump system will be infallible in as much as it will have a generator?
We would have to.
You have no choice. You really have no choice. You're defeating your purpose. You can't put a simple battery backup.
That's their own risk.
What was that?
That's their own risk.
All right, so what I'm getting at, to really make that work, you've got to have a permanent source of electricity. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to recommend that when we make our motion, that the developer's agreement include indemnification.
I have no problem with that.
Wait, well, let me get it on the indemnification from the ownership to the town for any water damage to your property or inhabitants or whatever is there.
I consent to that.
Okay.
Mr. Merman, I apologize, I'm writing as fast as I can.
I'm talking too fast, I'm sorry.
What I have so far is the DA, developers agreement shall include indemnification from the owner to the town for water damage.
I actually have in my hand a boilerplate of a stormwater drainage license agreement
Okay.
the borough uses.
Yeah.
So that'll be incorporated into your
Developers agreement.
developer's agreement.
And Mr. DeVito, I believe you received a copy of this from Mr. Costa that was
If I
circulated.
don't, I'll get it from you, Mr. Costa, because Mr. Costa will get it.
Okay.
That's it.
Left side? Oh, I'm sorry, there? Anything? Left side? Anybody?
Just one question, the question raised earlier about emergency vehicles and whether you can speak to the ones that are decking to support fire apparatus.
Fire apparatus,
I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about the upper deck. There's a fire in the building. The upper deck have the integrity to support fire apparatus.
Does it have, is it able to control the weight? What was the question? Will the upper deck control the weight of fire apparatus?
So what we have to design for them, yeah.
Yes,
That was-
yes, exactly, I didn't want to answer that.
The question is whether it can get up the ramp.
Well, that's part of that, we kind of hit that one already, but
Any other
let's assume it gets up the ramp, that's what I was
Well,
saying.
we've got
Any other
to
questions, my group of engineer?
We have one more from our planner.
Just a couple questions, thank you very much for your testimony. Regarding the new loading space that's going in the, I can't read on the north bound, is it northern?
That was good.
No, thanks, you, do we actually know what
I
time?
can hear. Yeah.
Deliveries are normally off hour.
So there'll be one investigation upstairs and one investigation downstairs. So we managed to have maybe two investigations upstairs and one downstairs. Where you envision more.
Here's a check.
Well, in my opinion,
They're gonna put a new basin, line down. Yeah, it's got an overflow.
I know, but how do you put it, how do you put it? You don't say.
That's why he's giving us identification. Especially for the water.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just restate my question for the record. Do you have any opinion on whether it makes more sense to have two handicap spaces upstairs and one downstairs, or vice versa?
yeah, it was my opinion that one up on the upper level is sufficient and two on the lower level is sufficient.
And those handicap spaces in the lower level will be adjacent to an elevator space?
It's, they're located, as close as the accessible entrance that can be. So there's I don't have the lower level mounted, but, The handicap spaces, the aisle, there's a handicap, access, which leads just to the lower level door, and then it's in a hallway to access the elevator. So I think it's, successful, so it's a successful route from handicap spaces to the elevator.
And, this might have been discussed at a prior meeting, so I apologize if I'm re-asking the question, but the dumpsters will be in the lower level.
They're on the lower level in this, southwestern side.
Okay, do we know how, trash pickups and occur on the side?
I don't.
Big manual is gonna be rolled out.
Roll out and care. Those are my questions, thank you.
Mr. Coster, anything else?
Again,
We came to a conclusion on this, on the hookup?
I did not have that application, but since there was an application filed, I think we just gotta clarify it for the record, because it says, to be determined, to be determined, to be determined. Very simple. Make a right.
You can make a right.
Make a right, make a right on go on Route 4.
Correct.
Do not pass any schools, do not stop at any schools.
Do not pass, no, do not pass.
So you have a couple hundred feet to a county road, to a state highway. You agree to that?
Yes.
There you go.
One more question about the drain, Mr. Costa. Proposing seepage pits with an overflow, correct?
We asked them to provide calculations and, obviously soils, information. at this point
Because
we haven't.
I can tell you it's probably not gonna work. So the question is, why are you gonna put a pit in with a check valve? And because of new stormwater regulations, the borough is ultimately now responsible for maintaining private stormwater facilities.
My opinion, take it out. I agree.
That's what I would do.
Some of our predecessors actually did a regional drainage system. Would we even talk about this stuff?
No.
Out Hagen? I don't wanna mention it.
So we're gonna remove.
Well, I think Mr. Costa will work to do that if, because I'm gonna probably presume that the soils aren't gonna work there.
I would absolutely agree with you, Mayor. So, we're saving them money.
We'll let Mr. Costa be the arbiter on that
As
as
far
well.
as the sewer and the trenches for the sewer, and obviously the trenches for the, storm sewer that you're gonna put in, you should absolutely think about some sort of milling and paving on the street after you dig it up. Or fix the trenches with,
Infrared.
Go work with the rest. Go work with Mr. Costa.
would that be right? I mean, you're gonna dig up the street, it's gonna settle. So after you're all said and done, whether you mill it and fix it or infrared it, I don't know if you're gonna have an issue with that or not.
We'll work with you, Mr. Costa, no problem.
10,000 yards, you're gonna wreck the street.
It's a lot of trucks.
That's a lot of trucks. I'm just saying, I mean, being realistic, it's definitely gonna do some damage to the road. 10,000 yards.
Any more questions for the engineer? Thank you. Do you have anybody else that you want to
Just like
testify?
planner.
Keep doing his job.
Lisa, will you be sworn in?
Sure. Lisa Phillips?
We'll let climb this off.
Will you swear in?
Ms. Phillips, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your full name for the record.
Lisa Phillips, Phillips.
And Ms. Phillips, what is your business address?
19 Blackfoot Trail, Oakland, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Ms. Phillips, what is your profession?
Professional planner.
What is your education?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in city planning from Pennsylvania State University.
And how long have you been a planner?
30 years.
I would have thought maybe 30 years.
30 years, yeah. And I've been licensed since 1992 in the state of New Jersey, as well as nationally certified.
And how many times have you been for planning boards of the state?
I'm going to say hundreds. I'm hoping not thousands, but it's probably
I offer some planning, please.
Let's make.
Would you be so great as to take us on a planning tour of this project?
Mr. Chairman, one night in Jersey City, the chairman actually had an egg pie. And he said to me, "Go, but if you don't stop before the sand is out of the egg packer, you'll be a good island."
I
Is that a hint? Is that a hint?
We do have another application.
I know, I'll get to the statutory criteria. Oh, I don't remember you updating this. Yeah, where's the plan?
Lisa, you distributed some photographs. Would you just describe what they are? We mark them as A9, a series of 8 photos?
Yes, on 2 sheets. Are we up to A8,
A9.
Counselor, or A9?
A9, today's date. My signature. Would you take us on tour of one of those?
Mr. DeVito,
That's
before we
the
get
old- It
started,
used to be ski house.
are we up to A8 or A9? I have
I'm sorry, I have
A8.
A9.
It is. You can't
What was
see.
A8?
Engineering, landscaping,
How can you see it? You're actually on it.
Okay, you're right, thank you.
Here, look through here. Look this way.
Okay, so the photo exhibit depicts the existing site. These photographs were taken by myself, they haven't been altered in any way. They were taken this October. So at the upper left corner is the site as it exists. From the easterly side of the street looking towards the site, you can see the existing building. The photograph in the upper right, again, is now the parking area. You can see the one curb cut that exists on Johnson Avenue, leading to the existing parking area. The lower left is the rear parking area that exists presently. This would be looking west towards, I believe, the Total Wine property, so you can see the existing parking area, and also a little bit to the left, you can see the parking lot that was described earlier, that I believe is rented out, so you can see some cars parked there. The lower right is a view from our site to the adjacent bank parking lot, which is in the rear. And the second page is the three photographs, the upper left, upper right, and lower left are all photographs of buildings that exist within Johnson Avenue on the same block. So the upper left is the adjacent property to the east. And that's the one southeast, and then that would be the one that was being discussed in terms of the retaining wall issue. The property across the street is shown on the upper right, as well as the office building and a bit of a corner building, which I think is the doctor's office, at the corner of Johnson Avenue, Main Street, in the lower left photograph. I was standing on Johnson Avenue looking north, and that's the existing strip center that has I think it's anchored by the Total Wine, the CVS, and then it's a series of the strip center. So that's a photograph just to orient you to where we were relative to Main Street. So after taking the photographs, I did an analysis of the architectural plans and the various permutations and changes that went on with that. Also with the engineering drawings, so I am up to date with all of the revisions. I believe I attended at least one of the technical meetings to discuss the specifics of how we got to this plan. So I am very familiar with the changes and the variances that we're now seeking. I did review the master plan as well as the zoning ordinance, and I did take a look at some of your redevelopment documents, not necessarily in terms of a plan, but just a study. And I think there was a visioning study that I was able to get off the website, but we were told that we were not in a redevelopment area, so I did not do an analysis of what this would look like. Because we're considering this like a spontaneous redevelopment, being done by the applicant, not necessarily part of the redevelopment plan. But if you look at the architectural style that we're proposing, it's much more modern in appearance, and it does kind of fit into that commercial center that's relatively new. So we are going with more of a modern style than what exists there now, but it's definitely within keeping of what the borough, I would think, would want to see in terms of architectural styling, and certainly the streetscape. We'd be willing to do whatever streetscape the borough would, or this board would require. So we have a few variances and a few site plan waivers. I'm just going to talk about the signage first, because I'd like to discuss the existing signage. Presently, from what I've gathered, there's approximately 126 square feet of traveling eastbound on Route 4. And this is the type of salon, as we just now, we use as Christine Ball made, that once you go there, I don't know if it's a club membership or anything like that, but women tend to keep going back. So once that initial view of the sign is there, and you get there the first time, you know how to get there after that. I know that was one of the comments that the mayor had, and I understand that. But if you can take advantage of that, I think it's a benefit. It exists now, so we're not increasing. In fact, the sign may be even the same size or a little smaller than what exists now. So we're not creating a new situation with that, and we're actually reducing the overall square footage that is proposed. So that sign variance we are seeking, I believe that the identifier signs are necessary for the people within the parking lot to find the access into the building. That's just my opinion on, my planning opinion on whether we should be able to retain those identifier signs in addition to seeking the variance for the new signs on the outside of the building.
By identifier signs, you're talking about the
ones
two smaller
interior,
ones.
the ones interior, not the large signs.
The two smaller
Two
signs.
The two smaller signs that we
Sign
talked
B?
about
An
earlier.
identifier to the people once you're within. It's not necessarily getting you to the site, it's once you're in the site to identify.
I just wanted to clarify which
Yeah.
signs, okay.
That's right.
That's sign D. Refer to in the plans as sign D.
With the
A little one,
identifier.
yeah. All right.
Sorry for interrupting, sorry.
So the variances that we're seeking are the minimum front yard. The parking structure is attached to the principal structure. This was one of the first things that Tom Barons and I had discussed, and this came up at the technical meeting, that if the structure is attached to the principal building, then it does become part of the principal setback requirements have to do with that, and that I totally agree. I definitely support that. So we are seeking a variance for the front yard setback for the structure itself, but we do exceed by probably nearly two times, over 2 times, the setback to the actual building. So 30 feet is required for the front yard. We have a 13-foot setback for the parking structure and approximately almost 80 feet for the building. So the tallest portion of the building in a massive scale is set way back. It's just that I believe it's about 13 or 14 feet high to that platform. That's what's going to be visible. But again, a building is permitted to be much higher than that. So there's not going to be any kind of detriment in terms of the aesthetics, that the mass of the building is set quite far back, and this is just the structure that you see, and there will be some landscaping in that area. The minimum side yard, 15 feet is required for one side yard with a combined 35. So we meet the building itself meets the side yard for one side yard, and we need a variance for 5 feet only on the other. So we do have 30 of the 35 for the principal structure of the building. Again, the parking structure though, we have to meet that. That's only set back 5.75 feet from the southerly property line, and we have a combined setback for that structure of the 20.75. This really gets into like the C2. A lot of these variances are C2 related in that it's a better planning alternative to what we have is to deck this building and have the parking, below and above. And to have the deck is what's creating the situation for the side yard setback. But the actual big structure that you'll see does meet it, except for the 5 feet on the one side. So really, it's kind of de minimis in nature from the side yard. We're not impacting really anybody's light, air, and open space. The property to the south, that building is non-conforming as it is, but the bank building, which would be to our north, we have a larger setback there, and that building is set back because I believe that's the side that they have their drive-through. So that building is set back, so there's no impact. When you look at the side yard and the front yard impact, it's all about light, air, and open space, but we're not impacting any adjacent properties by seeking these variances. The rear yard, 20 feet is required. We have 7 feet to the building and 0 for the parking structure. That was testified to before, I believe, by the architect. We need that to have the parking in that area and and to go all the way back, but again, adjacent to us is an at-grade, parking area on one side. The two lots that are behind us are actually split, almost 50-50. The lot to the south actually has kind of a dog leg or a panhandle that comes up behind us. There's nothing developed there, and that's a very unique, feature that really couldn't be developed in the future. It's not, sizable enough area. And then the property to the north and kind of going into the corner of Grand and Main where they have the rental parking, that's at-grade parking. So there's really no aesthetic impact, in terms of that. And again, the property does meet the building height, and in fact, back there, it's probably going to look lower because the topographic differential is more in the front than in the back. So I don't think it's gonna look that massive, from that area. The building coverage, we exceed the 40%, just on the building coverage, the parking structure itself, but the building does not, exceed that. We have any issues we could address with coverage, because that really relates to, drainage and things like that, and as we discussed, we do have a full drainage plan, and of course, that will be worked out with Mr. Costa. But when you're looking at coverage, that's one of the main things. Again, you know, light air open space, but additionally, what impact are you gonna have on your neighbors in terms of any, drainage? So I think that could be mitigated, with the proposal for the on-site drainage. The impervious coverage, variance, we have 83% and 80% is permitted. So that's a de minimis waiver. That's not that great of a deviation. And again, anything that would be approved in terms of, more drainage or anything like that would be mitigated by the on-site, retention. We also have the paved parking to 2 feet of a property line. Again, that's in that rear area where you're abutting an at-grade parking area that goes all the way up to the property, paved, pretty much all the way to the property there. We also have some design waivers, and that's where we can get into discussing the parking. I think the engineer and the architect, spoke, mostly about the other, sections, such as the loading area, the fact that the deliveries in this kind of situation, since they are in known, business right now, they know the products that come in and out. It's UPS, it's small vendor vans, or hair supplies, and things like that. There's no tractor trailers. So the length of that should not be an issue. I think the big issue with the design waivers is the parking spaces and your requirements. So your requirement for retail is 1 per 150, and that would require a total of, just the retail. So for the retail itself, you would be required to have 13 spaces, I'm sorry, yes. 13 spaces plus 28 on the first floor, and then 31, so for a total of 74 parking spaces. But that's using the 150 ratio, which I understand this town has, but in most situations, in most towns, a planning standard for retail is 1 per 200. 1 per 150 is used mostly at the medical office, but, so you are a little conservative on your numbers. So if we use 1 per 200, which is a typical retail standard, we would really only be required to have 65 parking spaces. And I would keep the 1 per 250 per office is a standard, typical, number. But 1 per 150, I think is a little excessive, and I think a little conservative. Again, we only required 65 if we use the 1 per 200. But this is just a design waiver. This is not a variance. So the operator knows the situation. He knows what square footage he needs. He knows his office. And although this variance will run with the land, they're certain that this amount of parking will suffice. So we have, I believe, the variance from 74 required, and I think with the changes that were made, we're down to 61 parking spaces on site.
planner have any questions for their plan? I think a lot of it was already discussed. I've gone over most of it.
And then, of course, there's the question.
I had to. This is my first time here. Thank you very much for your testimony, that's fine. I believe that there's also a matter regarding parking in the front yard. Were you able to?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, that's a waiver. That's a waiver. That's 350, section 350, 25B2. Off-street parking shall not be located in the required front yard and shall be no closer than 6 feet from the side or rear property line. So that's a little inconsistent from the one that's a variance that was the 0, or the 2 foot, and that was for the rear yard we were seeking. That's actually a variance, but this is a design waiver. So we have a 0 foot rear yard and 5.7 foot 5 side yard setback. Does require that design waiver. But if you look at the properties, I believe the photographs, go back to the photographs on the second page, and you can see that the majority of all of those stilted buildings with parking underneath have parking within the front yard area at grade. So we're not doing anything differently, and I think even the bank property has parking within the front yard. So that we're not impacting the neighbors in terms of anything aesthetic or anything new, that this situation exists right now on that street, so there's no detriment.
Any other questions?
I don't.
Can I just do negative criteria? Can
Yeah.
I do that? I'd like to
Okay, go ahead.
go into that quickly. Do you have the egg timer? Okay. Too much power. Looking at the master plan, what I have reviewed initially from the master plan, when I was looking at the redevelopment documents, there are some goals that I think we affirmed from the 2009 master plan update, it was called, or reexamination report, which lists all the problems and also your objectives related to the land development in River Edge. The plan lists 2 objectives that relate to proposed redevelopment of this area, let's say the area south of Main Street and west of Kinderkimmel Road. To create a redevelopment plan to better utilize the commercial district south of Main Street and various commercial areas along Kinderkimmel Road. The redevelopment plan did not include this property, but again, the thought was there that, hey, these areas need to be looked at. What we're proposing is a spontaneous redevelopment, not part of the redevelopment plan, but again, goes along with the architectural style, I think that the borough is looking to do in this area. And the second goal is maintain and upgrade existing commercial areas to provide a complete range of office, retail, and ancillary developments. So we have a combination of office, and we have one spa or salon taking the place of another. So again, we know that use. It also talks about River Edge continues to improve the commercial area aesthetic with additional streetscape installations, and new architectural styles have been introduced with some of the new construction. That was just a statement from 2009 talking about some of the issues that were brought up in the 2003 REACT. So they are talking about new architectural styles already being introduced in this area. So what we're doing really affirms the master plan. There's no negative to the master plan. We are in a zone that is permitted, both in the zoning ordinance and in your master plan. Any negative impact to the surrounding neighborhood, we would have to look at anything substantial. Of course, any kind of change, some people don't like it. We've been working with the neighbor, and I think that's totally worked out. So I think they're happy with the situation. I don't think there's going to be any negative impact in terms of the development on that adjacent property. I think the aesthetic improvement to that Johnson Avenue streetscape and area is going to be a benefit. So I don't believe that there's any substantial detriment to the public good.
Regarding the last goal that you brought up, the streetscape, I think you have an agreed to implement the streetscape orders for the property, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you have any concerns about having that front yard parking area next to the sidewalk that would detriment the streetscape?
You mean with the...
With the tiered parking?
With the tiered parking? Well, I think that they try to improve it in terms of they're going to have, I believe, decorative fencing or something
it's basically a little, like a little plastic grid or metal grid and then well, yeah, I thought it was whether or not they actually have enough actual space along the front, and a little bit when the architecture kind of open within the floors. It could work.
But I'm sure the client would be amenable to, Burgess's recommendations in terms of landscape architect and staff, or Mr. Shortino's a landscape architect. I'm sure they could come up with something if it was an aesthetic issue. But the streetscape, I believe, relates to the paving as well, right? Not just the trees, lanterns, and paving as well. So he'd be willing to go along.
So we'll incorporate that, our planner will, be the arbiter on this.
We did, if you remember, the plan that was proposed was the plan that the committee asked for.
Correct.
So that's what we made.
So there shouldn't be any issue.
They will be discussed too, so.
Board members, go to the left this time first. Anybody on the left? Anybody on the right? Mayor?
You said there was no impact to the adjacent properties in terms of air, light, and open space, but just the fact that we've increased the bulk of the buildings and moved it closer to the side yard and to the rear yard, wouldn't that necessarily decrease the amount of air, light, and space between this property and the adjacent properties,
Well,
compared to
actual-
existing conditions?
Well, compared to the existing conditions, yeah, like I said, any change, sometimes people don't like change, but the municipal land use law says, substantial detriment. And in this case, I don't think there is. The structure itself that really creates most of the variances is the parking structure, and that's not elevated that high to actually block anything. The building itself only needs a 5-foot side yard, because you have 15 and 15, but you're supposed to have 15 for a total of 35. So the building itself only needs a 5-foot variance. So I don't think that's enough to make any kind of substantial impact.
And with regard to the parking, he made a statement that he knows it's enough parking. How?
He's an operator of
Well-
the salon right now. They're moving their offices here as well. So everything is a known entity in terms of, the quantity of parking spaces.
But there was no basis presented where we would be able to agree or disagree.
But I mean, even without that, we do have, rationale. Like I said, you're very conservative on that parking ratio for retail. 1 per 150 is a typical medical standard by any, planning documents. So I think you're being conservative. So the fact that we are seeking a variance for it, if you looked at it from a typical 1 per 200, you really are only shy 4 spaces. If you're using your office standard, keeping that the same, and just going to 1 per 200, which is not unheard of. 1 per 200 is a typical. So I think you're a little conservative on those numbers, and I think we can justify it by the fact that the operator himself knows the situation with how many people and all that in terms of the operation. I can't testify to that.
Okay, no more questions.
But can I just point out one other statistic that I had done? So the building size is increasing 35%. We're going from 11,000 square feet to 14,800 and change. But our parking is actually increasing about 120%, because right now there's only 28 parking spaces at grade on that property, and we're going to 62. So we have a big increase, and that salon operated there for years with that parking situation.
Anyone else have any questions?
All right?
No, I'm fine.
At this point, I'd like to open the meeting to the public. A motion? Mr. Castro, second?
Second.
Ms. Boland? All in favor? Any opposed, any abstain? Okay, at this point, the meeting is open to the public on this application. Any questions at all that were during the testimony that we've heard tonight? Does anybody wish to speak? Being nobody wishes to speak, I'll take a motion to close to the public.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor? All, any opposed, any abstain? Okay. All right, at this point, we're at the point of the meeting where you're looking for a motion.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we still have a number of items to finalize. We've talked about them. We've got a sanitary sewer situation that seems to be contested by the client, although our borough engineer recommends it. We have a stormwater situation which just got changed. We eliminated a dry well. Mr. Costa's gonna go back and totally review that whole thing. We talked about a streetscape being a streetscape and not a streetscape. And I think we need some kind of a drawing for that, which is basically just going to show pavers and 3 tree pits and a relocated sidewalk. And we're not calling it a streetscape apparently because there's no lighting in it, but we still need that. We haven't satisfied the signs. I suggested that the 2 sign A's, front and rear, be installed, and the 2 sign B's be eliminated, which were the 2 small ones. That's still an open item. And it's been a lot of discussion, engineering-wise, on those ramps. So, we still got a little ways to go, I think.
Mayor, it would seem to me that you're prepared to abandon that rear sign. I would prefer the front sign, the identification sign. Nothing that you raised, I mean, the streetscape is an open program. You didn't know that you wanted the board to see straight or Mr. Costa to see straight. They wanted to know the design of the landscape. This design means nothing to us. What we put in was what we thought made sense. We're not going to have any choice with regard to the sanitary sewer. I already heard the comment, so the bottom line is, I'm going to have to do it until I see no movement on that. So if that's going to be the condition, I have to deal with it. So there is no real open items that are not going to be addressed, subject to. I would think if you saw fit to approve it, you just do it subject to the final plans will be drawn and they're going to be signed off on.
How do we handle the ramps?
The ramp, again, the ramp works. However, we have them coming in, and we perceive that we're going to be able to drop this somewhat.
This would be my suggestion, Mr. Murphy. If it is approved by the board, before the adoption of the final resolution, plans will be submitted back to the board.
Isn't that the same as us giving preliminary approval? And then coming back for final?
Well, if they don't do the plans, and they can't demonstrate that they work.
Well, my issue with that is that there's been a lot of time to do your design preparation for this project. It's been delayed several months. This first came to us late last year. There was plenty of time to do your technical investigation. There was plenty of time to do sanitary TV. Plenty of time for just making sure that everything was going to work out instead of having to basically say, oh, you know, we're going to continue our design after approval, which is what it sounds like. So that's my issue with it. It seems like it's more than just a couple of things.
Mayor, it makes my life easier. If you get new plans, everybody says these are the plans, this is what's new.
I don't disagree that there's not necessarily substantial changes, but they're significant enough where there's open questions, and you know, I've been telling the applicant representing that it's going to work, or you know, parking's going to work, and we're just supposed to accept everything and approve it.
This is an absolutely fabulous use. I'd hate to see it lost in this great municipality. This is a good plan. Nothing is perfect. I have no doubt that somewhere along the line we're going to have changes. You've got an incredibly capable board. You've got an incredibly capable engineer. If the board sees fit to approve it, we will produce the plans. This plan will work. Mr. Costa has been around a long time, will work under his supervision. This plan deserves to be approved. There's nothing that was raised that can't be approved tonight. Let us do our drawings, submit them, and have them signed off. Mr. Costas now doesn't own a rubber stamp. He will make sure that he's satisfied. If he's satisfied, everybody else will be satisfied. I would ask that a motion be made to approve, subject to A, B, C, and D. It's very simple. This is good planning. Your board has worked with us. This works. Don't lose this project. This is a good project.
That would be more appropriate. Yes, that would be more appropriate, I think, but doesn't matter, whatever the board wants.
Just a question, well, just one question, because I don't know if that was answered. Emergency vehicles getting into the downstairs, okay, pulling in underneath like an ambulance or something.
They said no issue. That was the question was asked.
There's no issue with that.
There was no issue in terms of the clearance. We didn't know how it was going to affect the ramps. That was not shown. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr.
I'd like to hear from some of the other board members. We do recognize that we do have these semi-open items. We might like to know how some of the other board members feel if we give preliminary approval, subject to these being resolved. I mean, there's still more work to be done to finalize it.
Mr. Kaplan?
I think I agree with Mr. Merman because I believe it's still has a really distinct depiction of everything that's going on. We've heard a lot of testimony, we've heard a lot of agreement that they'll work with us, they'll do this and that. But I think given the significance of this project, we need to see the final product that's going to be constructed.
Ms. Mola?
I agree as far as the ramp goes. I even question the 18%. It seems like it might even be higher than that. So I think some work has to be done to try to reduce that ramp.
I'm in agreement. I mean, a big thing is the ramp, to figure out a solution to that.
Michael?
Yeah, I agree, and I think my concern there is the proposed solution to that is somehow we'll make it work, but sometimes you can't fight physics, you can't fight geometry, and if it doesn't work, what's the plan? So kind of having some basis for that optimism is important.
Mr. Costa, would you like to weigh in on this?
Mr. Chairman, obviously, you've been in the site plan review meetings. The ramp and the slope of the ramp has been discussed ad nauseam. And again, 18% is too steep. It's not always the work.
Mr. Costa, would you think it prudent to have a preliminary approval and then they come back for final site plan approval? There's no public hearing required on the final site plan.
I would accept that.
I mean, I can understand. Again,
As long as they meet all the conditions.
Yes,
The applicant has professionals here tonight. He's put a lot of testimony on.
Well,
And again,
a lot of other boards would have just said, come back next month with the plans, and we're not doing that. We're trying to work something.
the downside is, if it doesn't work, does it trigger any other issue? Does it trigger any other variances? Because then you'll be back here anyway.
No, not
You have to
necessarily,
move.
you make a value judgment whether
Right,
it's just a machine.
Okay, well, just 2 seconds. We talked about getting more run. Obviously, it's a very simple thing. The longer the ramp, the slope goes down. If you have a certain rise to get to your upper level. We talked about putting the ramp in different locations, pushing it all the way to the north, because the road slopes upward. Slopes from Route 4 towards the north. And you did that for the most part. You didn't go all the way to the property line because you have the pedestrian access there. And you couldn't get the pedestrian access to work, obviously, because of the ramp. maybe the architect can look at it, possibly, you might use another parking space. And again, we talked about that at length at those meetings also. Take out some spaces in order to make it work properly, and that's where we have to. The bottom line is 3%, with that transition. I know you're probably looking at it saying, it's steep, it's uncertain view. I will put this on the record tonight, it will not work.
Let me make a suggestion. Mr. Costa made a suggestion. There is a solution if it doesn't work for us, if we can't pay people. If we drop the buildings out, meaning shorten the building by 2 feet, solves the issue. Okay, that's a dramatic situation. I don't want to have to be forced to that situation. I'll take a preliminary approval, but if I can't come up with a solution, I'm going to be forced to shorten the building to lessen the grade. It's as simple as that. And by the virtue of what I just put on the record, if I shorten the building by 2 feet and increase the grade, lessen the grade, I don't have to have another hearing.
You have that.
I wouldn't have to have another hearing. I would just,
I don't want to play attorney tonight.
I think it would trigger a return to the board. I mean, you're shortening the building by 2 feet.
and I would submit plans.
But the board has to act on it as a body.
Sure it does.
Yes, but it's a preliminary approval. You're reviewing a preliminary.
So
That's-
you're
that's
asking for
based on-
preliminary approval on the shortened building?
No, you guys were preliminary approval on this, but you can't, what you're
Right.
proposing though, you can't come back with that kind of a change on a final plan, because it's gonna affect
Because
the parking standard, it's gonna affect,
The parking, the coverage,
Yeah.
the setback.
there may be a substantial change between preliminary and final, so how do you come
but I
back
think
with
that would
final
be the
approval
answer.
if
I
it's
think that's what
substantial change?
nobody wants to say, is that that's the difference between this working and not. The building's too big.
So if you agree to shorten the building tonight?
That's still to come back.
Why?
2 feet, it changes all the different variables. It'll change the parking, change the coverage, change the setback, change
Yeah,
everything.
well,
Here's a suggestion.
if it takes away from it.
I'm going to make a
Can't change it.
suggestion. I was just authorized to make a suggestion. Give me a preliminary approval, we're going to shorten the building by 2 feet. Now, if you give me a preliminary approval and I present you plans for the final, the building will be shorter. I'm here. That. So,
Mr. Costa, do you know if it's shortened by 2 feet?
Yes.
Approximation of the grade of the,
Again. And I think you have a board that wants to work with you and approve something. But I don't, and again, I'm not the attorney for the board. If you make the building smaller, your coverages change, your setbacks change, your parking requirements change, all the above changes.
except that I've presented the package, it's a preliminary approval, I've come back for a final. I've changed the plan, I've reduced the embarrassment to council.
But with all due respect, that plan is not before the board, nor is it before the public.
If I could just weigh in for a minute, I had this situation in front of another board, and the question that came up was that there were changes between preliminary and final approval. The question that arose in that situation was, were those changes substantial and were all the conditions met? The applicant clearly had made some changes that were substantial, so with all due respect, Mr. DeVito, I think what you're proposing here sounds to be a substantial change. I don't know how this board grants an approval based on a representation, the building would be shortened by 2 feet, and then you come back for final.
Because you could do the same thing, come back next month and get a final approval.
Right.
Get preliminary and final. Because it's only gonna make things better.
We asked that no change what'll happen, and I ask you to continue the meeting without any further notice. Loose bands will be submitted to the engineer, we're going to shorten the building. Everybody's not concerned.
Okay, Mr. DeVito, does the applicant waive all statutory
Yes.
timeframes, extend the time for the board to act?
Yes.
Okay. And what date are we carrying this to?
If they're gonna put in new plans, it would have to be that first meeting in March. if I'm not mistaken, because you're not gonna be able to make the 14 days, the 10 days unless you have the plans tomorrow. So that meeting would be the March 7th, at 7:30 PM.
Could you please carry it to March 7th at 7:30, 7:30 notice?
I'll make an announcement in one moment.
And just to summarize, when you come in on March 7th, your revised drawings will solve the stormwater issue approved by Mr. Costa, which apparently eliminates the dry well. You will also revise your drawings to show Mr. Costa's proposed sanitary, new sanitary line. Am I going too fast for you? Yeah, this one. Okay, so you are going to incorporate, if necessary, any findings from your soils investigation, I believe, which is pending. From a streetscape category, you will have a plan which will show new sidewalk, new curbs, 3 tree pits, no lighting. Go ahead.
Sidewalks, curbs, and...
Tree pits.
3 pits. 3 tree pits.
3 tree...
Pits, P-I-T-S. Okay. From a sign standpoint,
I'll remove the lower sign in the back.
for now. I guess you need to investigate, the reason you're gonna move the building back 2 feet, we've already stated that. You're gonna move, this submission's good.
Make it smaller.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, correct, you're correct. You're gonna move the front of the building 2 feet, thereby reducing the width from front to rear. Okay, try to be clear. I guess the important thing is you're going to re-engineer your access ramps.
Yes.
And I guess
Well, and
you will work with Mr. Costa on that?
And if Mr. Costa deems it that it needs to be heated for safety reasons, then you're going to include that in your plan.
Say that again, Mr.
If Mr. Costa feels that it needs to be heated in order for it to be safe, you'll include that in your plans.
I think that's a condition that can come later.
Yeah, we're talking about the ramps.
The big issue on the ramps is the geometry. Okay. We can get into surface treatment and everything else, heating later. But I think those, just in summary, those are the major items, which I...
The landscaping in the front, the planners, to work with the planners, or whatever.
Okay.
Try to soften the front wall with this fellow said.
I'm confused, I got one, get confused easily.
You're not alone.
I don't understand the difference between whether you want the streetscape or what you have now. Because if you want the streetscape, what is it?
I just mentioned it.
No, it's on there.
It's on
The
there.
brick papers are on the plan.
Yeah, I
The
think...
only thing you're missing is the trees.
I believe what you really need there, because it's kind of buried in...
Shade tree takes, you have to put in the pits, the actual wells, the tree wells, you put them in, you need the details.
Right, it makes it easy. You've got to check first.
The boroughs are shade trees, they plant it. If that's all we're talking, that's easy, okay, because I'm confused.
What
They
I'm
like
saying-
to plant the trees.
What I'm suggesting is you have a separate plan for streetscape, showing the things I defined before, being sidewalk, curb, pavers, tree pits. Okay? No, emphasize no lighting.
No,
Lighting,
no,
no lighting, emphasize no. Did I miss anything? Oh, when we get the developments agreement, we'll talk about that next time around. But if I miss something, let me know. With some respect.
as to the soil removal, I don't think I need to do any more, because we put on the record, it's going to be right out, like God. That's done, I'm done, that's done. There's nothing further I
Well,
need
it's
to
not
say.
voted on by the board, but that's your testimony.
The testimony was right, and gone.
Okay, should we be putting those quantities on the cover sheet?
They're on the application, it'll go into the developer's agreement.
Okay, it's,
So as long as the board makes them do a developer's agreement, which in this case
They can add a sheet to the site plan, say, with the cuts and fills.
okay. So I'm with the cuts. Okay, so, are we gonna handle, so we're gonna vote that that's
No,
what? No, I'm not gonna give him approval.
No.
We're not doing anything, she's gonna make the announcement, and we're good.
Carrying it.
We're just gonna.
Okay, we're carrying it, okay.
The applicant will submit revised plans to the
Great,
board.
which is gonna have this summary, okay.
Right. All right, for those of you that are here this evening on ILDJ LLC, 335 Johnson Avenue, Block 1405, Lot 3. It is being carried to March 7, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. in these chambers. You will not receive any further notice from this board or from the applicant.
All right, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna ask for a little latitude from the board. I know that we usually end at 10 o'clock, but Mr. Barrett's been waiting here patiently.
I thought he was just enjoying that discussion.
I'd like to get him and his client up. I don't know if we'll finish it, but at least we'll get some teeth into it here tonight. Good evening, Mr. Barrett. This is that, let me just read it in. This is applicant New York Market, 625 Kinnicamack Road, Block 614, Lot 802. Good evening, Mr. Barrett.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman. So, we were here, back in December, at that point, Mr. Costa was tasked with, going to the site and making certain recommendations. We've been provided with a copy of his letter. Most of the requirements are landlord obligations. The landlord attorney sent a letter to Mr.
Read it?
Yesterday, Mr. Chakowski. I don't know if the board saw that.
I did.
Okay. Basically saying that if the board were to approve and impose certain conditions, then the landlord and my client would have to work out who to accomplish those conditions. I think that we can tell you, though, that my client has spoken to her interior designer, and we will be able to accommodate the shopping carts within the store itself. So that there's no need any longer to maintain the corral. And I know that was a major concern of the board.
So just for the record, let me just clarify what you just said. Basically, the landlord has given the authority to the tenant to agree to whatever's agreed to tonight, and he will work it out with her, but whatever's agreed to will be done, because we're not going to negotiate with the tenant, with the landlord after this meeting. Is that correct?
Well, maybe if I just read the email into the record, because it speaks for itself, and I agree with your interpretation.
You can read it into the record, but that's the only way we're going to be able to hear this tonight, is that...
So it's from a Patrick Anderson who I spoke to a week ago, and it's to
file as provided by my client, is consented to the application, and is not the applicant. Any site concerns can be addressed by the tenant, who is the applicant seeking approval. My client is unavailable and will not be appearing this week. If the board approves the application as conditions of approval, those will be worked out between landlord and tenant after the fact.
Okay.
Well, but he's saying that's gonna be on the applicant.
Right.
And I don't know if that's, I mean, there's stuff that is pre-existing that should have been addressed by the landlord and not necessarily by the tenant.
But what throws me here, and I apologize, this is the first time I'm actually looking at this, any site concerns can be addressed by the tenant, who is the applicant seeking approval. And then he goes on to state conditions of approval will be worked out between the landlord and the tenant after the fact. It seems to be saying two different things.
So you're saying that the tenant is sort of acting as his agent?
That's
and
exactly
then
what the way I read
They
it.
cannot
That's
agree
not what I
between the
hear.
two of them, they can't get the CO.
No, but-
I hear he's gonna say it's gonna,
Yeah, but if
you
we,
want the approval, you have to do it.
if we as a board give the applicant approval tonight, subject to certain conditions, and
She can't
she
impose
can't do
conditions,
it.
she's not the owner. So she can do all the things she wants, but she's not the owner of the property, so how do you?
Even if he's giving her permission to agree to certain things? If he's...
Well, I mean, the
basically-
way I see it is very simple. If she agrees to certain things, one way or another, they have to get done. If they don't get done, they don't get a CO.
Or do they take this survey, Mr. Costa, and mark it up, put all your notes, resubmit it, and make that the record?
Then it's the record. Or we read this into the record, or this report gets attached to the resolution, but then again.
Because I don't think I would.
Does it only give consent to file the application?
Yes.
I mean, I'm looking at the client, I don't know whether.
I understand, I mean, this is obviously I'm not representing, Ms. Wu on the landlord-tenant relationship, she has corporate counsel and like that. So that's going to be their discussion with the landlord as to whose responsibility. Her agreement with the landlord, though, is contingent upon approval for the issuance of the landlord license.
But aren't they here now, today or no?
No, it's not fair to have the applicant continually being penalized because you have a landlord who does not want to come, does not want to produce a witness, and gives us ambiguous letters.
I have a historical question here. I mean, there are conditions that this landlord was supposed to have met in the past that he has not met, is that correct?
Mr. Costa?
I think it's just the trees.
Okay, so,
Right now, there's an application, the board has no enforcement power. And I think the way we left off was,
But
if he doesn't want to come here, then it's a borough matter, and the borough will
no, it's not the problem.
violation.
Depends if ownership has changed. I don't know if we've really determined if ownership has changed or not, because that's when they need a new CO. And I don't know what
If you have property, you need to maintain the property.
We've been down that road with him, with the courts, and it just has to be addressed. The food handler, I'm checking the code, I think the code says the food handler is a site plan application.
It is.
So we don't have a site plan. So he needs to mark up the site plan,
These recommendations.
and he's gonna have to agree to it, that
Then
this is gonna be done. That way it's clear.
It's a simple thing. You do a motion to deny, and that's it. And then they can certainly reapply at that point.
Well, we could do a motion to carry.
Either way.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I don't.
There should be a site plan according to the ordinance.
I'm not an attorney.
My concern is twofold. The first aspect of it is that there appear to be conditions by virtue of a prior resolution that remain unsatisfied. The owner still has not complied with those conditions.
And what are those?
That's, well, but if I can just finish for a moment, so that's the first aspect of it. The second concern that I have is that you have an applicant before us that, yes, the applicant has the owner's consent, but I'm not assured as I sit here that this tenant can consent to site changes or any concerns the board may have regarding the site. That's the second concern that I have. I understand that the attorney for the landlord sent an email to Mr. Chakowski on February the 6th, but that doesn't allay my concerns. Because, counsel, I don't know if your client can represent that she's the agent for the landlord and she has the authority to make or to accept any conditions imposed by this board that don't pertain to her tenancy there. Is that accurate?
I can only go by what the attorney represented to Mr. Chakowski, that if the board imposes conditions, they will be complied with, and how they are complied with will be determined between the landlord and the tenant.
But see, to me, conditions are different than the concerns that the board has regarding the dumpster, regarding the garbage that's in the rear of the property. To me, a condition is more of in line of, okay, we're going to take the carts and we're going to put them, keep them in the interior of the building. They're not going to be corralled outside any further. To me, that's a condition pertaining to this application. I think we're dealing with two separate and distinct issues here, and I'm just not convinced that your client has the authority.
We're not approving a food handler's license. We're actually approving a site plan.
Right.
But, Madam Attorney, does this board have subpoena power?
Yes.
Why are you talking other stuff? You've asked them to come
You can
twice.
issue a subpoena.
All right, so I have a question. Was notice required on this application?
Yes.
So we did notice, you didn't notice?
Let me ask, I don't know if this is legal, if we can do it legally. Is there a way that the health department can issue a temporary food handler's license so she can open, conditional, it's only a temporary CO, and so to come back and get the site plan approval? 90 days?
No, I mean, I guess they could. I wouldn't recommend it.
Well, I have a question. You spoke about prior conditions that were uncomplied with. What are they?
Mr. Castle just left the room. Here he comes. The
Rob.
question is, what are the conditions that have not been met?
I do not have the resolution in front of me. What I do have is we went out and did a report on the current conditions. On the current conditions. Right.
And there's nonconformities or, there's nonconformities and things which aren't per code, that's what has to be addressed.
I understand, but that's two different things.
Yes.
The one thing was that there were conditions.
I think that only affects the trees, that's as far as I understand.
And my understanding is that, perhaps we should get the Shade Tree Commission here, but my understanding from speaking with the landlord is
But
that
to me-
they are the ones who remove the trees.
But that's fine, I mean, to me, the trees are the minor part.
Right.
To me, the parking lot, the garbage, the sidewalks, those are the issues that need to be addressed. We made, the trees would be the last on the list.
All right, just to bring it a little bit more up to date though, that, the pallets that were in the back, they've been removed. There is still some material against the building covered with a blue cloth because of the alterations that are taking place, and they should be finished within a month.
So, when I drove through there over the weekend, all that stuff that was there on the weekend is gone now?
Not all of it, I believe we have a, right, so, this is,
All right, can we enter that?
this is the photo that was taken yesterday.
Who took it? Can you just please raise your right hand? You swear or affirm the testimony about to give the truth, nothing but nothing but the truth?
Right.
Please state your name for the record. Ms. Wu, what is your relationship to the applicant?
Question, quick, before I pass this around. You have some vans there. Who belongs to those vans?
The van belongs to the current owner, and when I talked to him, he said, he will remove the van after we go.
And what's the name of your market?
New York Mart.
Because I know on the side of these vans it says New York Mark on them.
Oh, if and when I have a New York Mart as our, the current owner for our,
So you're keeping the ownership, you're keeping the same name, New York Mark. That's what it used to be before?
New York Mart is a new name, this before it's
All right, so my question again is, there are vans here that have on the side, New York mark, on the sidewall. Who belongs to those vans?
If the sign on your mark is our company.
That's yours.
Yes. But if also my company's car is not.
And I congratulate you on the cleanup from the other day when I drove by. Pass it around to that.
Can I ask a question about alterations? You said there was material from alterations that are being done. What alterations?
Was equipment being replaced?
Who's replacing that equipment?
I think it's a contractor hired by the current owner.
So you haven't taken possession?
To get a building permit, it had to be a plan. To get a building permit, there would have had to be a plan, so there's got to be a plan somewhere.
No, it's the equipment within the store.
Like HVAC
Built-in
equipment?
interior.
But they're not changing any of the interior? It looked like there's a lot of work going on in there.
No, only like refrigeration and like islander, we put the shelf.
Is there a building permit or electrical permit?
As I say, you need plumbing and electrical.
The building department's been there, so I assume everything is what it needs to be.
Another question with respect to parking. Zoning ordinance in section 416-42, A3, says that in all non-residential zoning districts, vehicles with commercial plates and other business vehicles shall not be parked between the hours of 1 a.m. and 6 a.m., except in an enclosed garage or in off-street parking facilities which are located in the non-residential zoning district.
All right, so I understand what you're reading. However, that area there where the vans are parked is certainly within a residential area, even though the property itself may not.
And then there's, because actually, you know what, if you want to go that route, there's not a sufficient buffer here. So maybe we should talk about taking those spaces out along the back and putting a proper buffer in.
You can't do that.
Well, but if you're trying to...
60 years, I'm just saying.
Did you know Judge Shapiro has changed an ordinance for this particular site already? He already banned pickups of trash before 8 a.m. We've had so many issues with the noise and the garbage and everything.
I even
He
get
went to
that.
court, and Judge Shapiro told him they can't have any pickups before 8 o'clock. So we have a lot of sensitivities with the neighbors there, and so we're just trying to, it's an eyesore. The place is a mess. We know this. Look at it.
I think then that perhaps Mr. Costa's suggestion.
And there's been no
should be
site plan
followed,
submitted.
And the owner's opinion, so that he can come in front of the board.
Well, someone's gonna have to produce a site plan. I mean, that's really what has to be done. What are we supposed to approve if we don't have a plan to approve? What are we approving?
Put a plan in with what you're gonna do, Mr. Barrett, and present the case. And quite frankly, if an attorney sends a letter a day before to the attorney and it's ambiguous or no one understands it, I mean, you're put in a bad position yourself. And if you're represented by another counsel, bring him. Well, give us his name and the attorney will put his name on it. You know, get everybody here and work out the differences. And that's it. Obviously, the mall is not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you want to purchase the business, open up and conduct business.
And by the way, we want you
And
to
the
open up the
borough,
business.
all the borough wants is a good neighbor and clean up the site.
Right.
That's all.
To the extent that we can do what's required, we will do it, as I said, about the card and about the, keeping our particular sewer line, we mentioned that it's very.
There's no question, there's a sewer line there.
No,
There's no question it goes down Kennington Mac Road and it makes a left-hand turn.
There was three of them, I understand.
Right.
In any event, whatever is in control of the store, we're willing to do. We are as frustrated as you in dealing with the landlord.
You and I have had frank discussions,
Correct.
so you know my feelings.
I
I think my feeling's probably gonna echo about 80%, 90% of what the board feels.
Okay, so I think everybody understands, we're in the middle, and whatever help you can let, we will be happy to. And as I said,
You've asked the gentleman to come here respectively 2 or 3 times, and he refuses. And if this board has subpoena powers, that's it.
And what happens if he doesn't appear?
Throw him in jail.
We can have copies.
Is the owner, do we have the information, the owner an LLC or an
Well, I have,
individual or?
you know, the first,
LLC according to the application.
Yes. The owner of the property.
So there's a way to determine in the courthouse the managing member of the LLC, so you know an actual individual to subpoena?
well, there should be something on file in the building department.
Actually, as an owner of an LLC, you cannot, if you're.
He's got an attorney.
Right, you need a
That's
return.
fine. But when he consents to the application, he might have to disclose the ownership.
You know what the problem is? The disclosure, it doesn't, I don't think the application provides for that. I think it's just a blanket, I consent to the application. There's no disclosure.
It's the applicant that discloses ownership.
Yeah. Not the owner.
You can change that tomorrow.
Hey, can I just ask a question, just so I have my players straight here? New York Mark River Edge Inc., that's your company, and you're going to take assignment of the existing lease, or are you entering into a new lease with the landlord?
It's a new lease.
New lease.
Did you sign the lease already?
Yeah, we've done that, the executive form that you need for approval.
Alright, so no money has changed hands, you're not paying rent until you obtain your approval?
And then we already paid them next month.
I think it's very clear from what council has indicated, this tenant doesn't have the authority to agree to the items I think that this board wants to discuss this evening, so, to that end, I believe that it's, Mr. Costa, thank you, I think it's a good suggestion for us to subpoena, for the board to subpoena the landlord to show up at the next assigned hearing date. The other aspect of it is that there should be some form of a drawing or a site plan that's submitted in connection with this application.
When were you originally planning on being open? What's your expectation?
Actually, we scheduled like, February, but I don't think we can do it.
No, but you still have work ongoing inside, do you not?
Yes, because, when we signed the lease with the landlord, so there, like, we have a purchase agreement with the current owner. They agreed to pay some repairs on the equipment part, so they just do that.
And how much completed is that? Is it
They told
almost
us-
done, 90%
Yeah,
done?
they told us we will complete within 1 month, so.
So you wouldn't be able to open until that point anyway?
But before we got the approval.
No, take the approval aside, I'm asking you, if this wasn't the issue, when would have wanted to open?
It's a 1 month still.
Let's do this. Let's carry this until the next meeting, which should be 2 weeks from today. Let's give the landlord one more opportunity to show up. I guess, you can explain to him the direness of it. If he refuses, then we'll go to the borough for enforcement action. We don't want to take that. We don't want to do that, but the place is a mess and needs to be fixed.
When you say enforcement action, Mr. Chairman, you mean as the condition of the property?
Whatever enforcement action that we can recommend to the borough.
So that might include the issuance of the subpoena?
It may include that, it may include, if they didn't meet conditions, the removal of the COs for
He's
all
never
of it.
shown up to any
But if the
court
board
hearing.
wants
You've asked this gentleman to come here, how many times? And he refused.
Well,
If you have subpoena power, just issue a subpoena to come here, that's it.
Here's my recommendation.
But don't waste time, he's gotta come, somebody's gotta come with the plan, so we know what's gonna be approved, and that's it. So it doesn't matter if he's standing here,
A quick plan, or do you,
or,
or go to March 7th, you come back on the 7th, and that's it.
So just highlight whatever Mr. Costa.
I'd rather them come back either 2 weeks or 4 weeks, because with Mr. DeVito on the 7th, I don't want him sitting here all night waiting to get in.
Well, then we would give Mr. Barrett the preference that night.
Well, we're gonna, yeah, because we have to get a,
We gotta put the plans on,
no, we have to get a drawing.
Right, okay.
I mean, I don't think you need a full site plan set, you know, I mean, you have a survey, you know, either somebody use that as a takeoff and then just add whatever improvements Mr. Costa.
Rob, you said that there was a prior resolution, correct? Do you have that with the conditions?
I don't have it in this file.
So do you have it at some
There was
point?
definitely, there was a prior resolution, no question about it.
What was the approval for?
To market.
I think it was
The previous one?
Well, actually, the last approval that was done in that building that I know of is the restaurant that is all the way to the left. They
Yeah.
came in, that was probably the last approval that building has got.
Yeah, but this,
Turkish restaurant. Yeah, they came in.
yeah, but this particular tenancy, this square footage and all, I think that went back to Bruce Safro when it went from ShopRite to something else.
Yeah, they haven't been since.
Right, they haven't been in since. I remember that. I remember that site plan review meeting, because,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the last, I mean, for anything substantial,
Yeah.
other than what you said with the restaurant, that's the only thing that I didn't. And that's many years ago. Yeah, it's still figured. And he received it from me? Wow. Okay, so it's the same element. What I would do is call Virginia at 1:40. Virginia, is it Glenn or Glenn? Like crazy.
Right, yeah, the office is open for all.
Okay.
If you could get me a copy of that resolution,
I will,
just go ahead.
I will look tomorrow morning.
Thank you. 'Cause I have a resolution with them, I think I supplied to Mr. Brown, it's from 1994, but it's basically just signed. They, you know, they went on to the comprehensive sign design. So I know there was a question on our side, all we're doing is replacing the existing sign, which is the approved sign.
But from that, I mean, Mr. Creek was a pretty level-headed gentleman. I mean,
I'm not sure which.
All right, so, let's just go, we'll deal with that.
If the board says I can do it, I'll certainly give him a call tomorrow, because if it's the same gentleman, he's a reasonable guy. I don't know what would change.
Does the board want to utilize its subpoena powers?
Let's wait until the next meeting, if he doesn't show up, then we will visit it then. Everybody in agreement with
Or
that?
could you issue just have the authority to do it, you know? Is that, how does that work? Do we have to grant authority to do it? Or you?
I typically ask the board for a motion, to direct the attorney to issue a subpoena commanding the appearance of, in this case, the landlord.
what's the downside of doing that?
It's contingent, right? You don't have to do it, only we give you the authority to do it now.
You want to do that? Okay.
What's the notice period for him to respond?
I don't know that the MLUL really has a specific notice period, but typically from one meeting to the next, so, I mean, we've never done it, we've talked about it with other boards, we've never actually issued a subpoena.
We're breaking ground now.
Breaking ground.
The new sheriff over here.
The new sheriff in town. All right, then, I will entertain a motion first.
What is the next meeting?
The next meeting is 2 weeks from today.
21st. Good. 7:30 or 7?
7:30. We knew we had a full docket tonight, we wanted to try to get everybody in. And again, I'm sorry you're stuck with this, but you are, at least for now. Just, you know what would make me happy when you come back? Those vans gone and the enclosures fixed on the dumpsters. I drove by there over the weekend, and there were heads of lettuce with birds and stuff flying in and out, pulling the lettuce out of the open dumpsters. All right, so, the proper enclosures, those dumpsters closed when they're not used, and those vans out of there.
But in all likelihood, we will not have a plan to site plan.
Well, just, I think you said if you can get a copy of the survey and just mark up the survey, wouldn't that suffice?
It still has to be 10 days. It's like,
You're not gonna make.
So just go back on.
You have to renotice?
No, we won't have to renotice.
Come back on the second. And you'll have a plan, you'll have.
and you'll have an answer from the attorney or
I think that's,
the owner.
I think that's the best.
So if you do that, then if council, if you don't get a response, positive response from the landlord or the landlord's attorney, then in that case, we're already authorized to issue the subpoena, assuming this board acts on that.
And I will so advise them
Right.
that back.
To expect it.
All right, so call for a motion on issuing a subpoena, should the landlord not respond to...
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, so it's Mr. Craig and Mr. Mervin. Roll call vote, please, on
Oh.
that.
Shara Killian?
Yes.
Ms. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Yes.
Mr. Grasso?
Yes.
Mr. Caslin?
Yes.
Mayor Mignon?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
In the meantime, Mr. Barrett, you're gonna communicate to the owner?
And
Do we need to send out any letters to Mr. Barrett for traceability? Well, if we submit the subpoena? In
Yes,
other words,
so-
if for some reason it goes to court, you can show that you wrote a letter.
Well, we just memorialize what you just said, if you don't get a response in 10
Right,
days.
right.
So just
So my
memorialize that.
recommendation would be, what we do is issue a letter to Mr.
Barrett.
Mr. Barrett? Mr.
confirming-
Barrett?
Confirming the discussion this evening, that it's been carried to March 7th. He will reach out to the landlord's attorney.
And we want the site plan.
Right, there's a site plan to be submitted at least 10 days in advance of the assigned hearing date.
Okay, and that if
If
we don't
coun-
hear about it, a subpoena will be issued.
Right, so council, what we're talking about here is I'll send a letter to you either tomorrow or the next day confirming our conversation on the record this evening. If I'm gonna ask you to do this, once you reach out to either the landlord or the landlord's attorney, if you don't have a positive response respecting the landlord's appearance at the assigned hearing date, please advise us, and at that point, then we'll issue the subpoena. Is that
Right.
the board's,
Yes.
the board wants?
So it's gonna be March 7th, though, correct?
Yes,
March 7th.
that should,
And council,
we get it all wrapped up.
does the applicant waive all statutory timeframes and extend the time for this board to act? Thank you. I don't know when it's here, so let me make the announcement, and we may want to just open it to the public, just to make sure.
Motion open to public.
So have a second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? Nobody in the public that wishes to speak? Motion to close? All in favor?
Aye. Good, that was quick.
7:30 or 7?
7:30.
Yeah, Mr. Shigo again.
Yeah, 7:30.
That's fine.
Otherwise, we have to go through a whole, but it's just the two of you.
But I said, out of deference, maybe Mr. Barrett gets to go first that night.
Yeah, you paid your dues tonight.
Can I just make an
Unfortunately.
announcement, Counselor, before you leave, just so that it's formally carried? Anybody is here this evening on New York Market, 625 Kinderton Road, Block 614, Lot 8.02. It's being carried to March 7, 2018, at 7:30 p.m. in these chambers. You will not receive any further notice from the applicant or from this board.
Thank you.
Carried.
What is he so funny?
You got my, you
Not me, I didn't, my friend at work. Motion to adjourn. First of all, I want to thank the board for staying late tonight and coming early. Again, you guys are incredible. I love working with all of you. And thank you all for not responding that you weren't coming tonight. A motion to close.
Before you go, no, there's one other thing, and Ali probably knows, there were new stormwater regulations adopted as of January 1. The board is mandated to have training within 6 months.
Okay, so we'll get a
We're
tape
working,
for it.
well, it's more complicated than that now. So I'm trying to get it set up with Alan, because mayor and council have to get it also. So maybe we'll have the same.
Okay.
general
Very
training.
online video.
It's more
That
advanced.
stupid
than that
video
now.
again?
No, it's different.
With the whale?
No, they made it much more.
Performance guarantee.
tell Brian he's fired. You are now our board attorney. So we did close, right? You can turn a...
No, we didn't adjourn.
Are you gonna make a motion?
All right, well, I'm not gonna ask that on a motion.
I have not actually looked at anything yet. Were you aware of that?
Which,
Performance guarantees?
Oh, yeah.
oh, did they change that?
Yeah.
Make sure that's substantial.
Yeah, were you,
No,
I
not
have it,
yet.
when we send it to you?
Yes, please.
I have to remember, I have to send myself a reminder.
Performance guarantees.
You can't ask for them.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained?
Shut her down.
And we-
What before?